Deep beneath the surface of the world, where the sun has never reached, a silent and incredibly slow transformation is always unfolding. Imagine for a moment the quiet weight of the earth, layer upon layer of soil, then limestone, then ancient bedrock, descending into a realm where time is no longer measured in the rapid passing of hours or days, but in the slow, sweeping arcs of eons. Here, in the profound darkness and enveloping, steady warmth of the planet's deep crust, elements are drawn together. They do not rush, they do not force their way. Instead, in the absolute stillness, invisible atoms begin to align, finding their perfect places in a grand, unseen architecture. This is the birthplace of light within the dark. This is where the chaos of scattered elements settles into perfect repeating geometry, where wandering minerals surrender to absolute order and where crystals are born. As we journey downward into this hidden landscape tonight, as we explore the mesmerizing, orderly world of crystalline structures, you're invited to let your own mind mirror this deep, quiet settling. There is no need to hold on to the surface world. There is no need to grasp at the details or memorize the journey we're about to take together. You do not need to try to remember the geometric shapes, the vivid colors, or the millions of years it takes to form a single, flawless facet of a stone. Let your mind soften. Let the ideas drift through your awareness like water gently seeping through porous rock. What stays, stays. What fades away simply makes room for a deeper, more profound rest. You're allowed to simply listen, or not listen at all. You can let the words wash over you, a gentle current carrying you further into relaxation. The facts and the stories will simply exist, a steady, calming rhythm in the background, while you allow yourself the luxury of drifting, floating, and finding your own perfect alignment in the quiet architecture of sleep. We are leaving the busy surface behind. We are entering a space of immense calm, a sanctuary of time and pressure, where the only thing that matters is the slow, steady accumulation of peace. Let the rhythm of your own breathing match the slow, patient growth of a crystal deep underground. With every exhale, imagine releasing the heat and noise of the day, settling further into the quiet. Consider the clear, icy perfection of quartz, one of the most abundant yet extraordinary minerals on our planet. It is not just a beautiful arrangement of silicon and oxygen, it is a keeper of rhythms, a silent heartbeat in the mineral kingdom. Deep within its atomic lattice lies a remarkable, almost magical property known as piezoelectricity. When a gentle pressure is applied to a quartz crystal, it responds by generating a tiny, microscopic electrical charge. And conversely, when a spark of electricity touches it, the crystal physically changes shape, vibrating with an astonishingly precise frequency. This is not a chaotic trembling, but a steady, unyielding, perfect pulse. It is this exact, unwavering vibration that we have harnessed to keep time. Inside watches and clocks around the world, a tiny tuning fork-shaped sliver of quartz is quietly humming, vibrating exactly 32,768 times every single second. It is a profound thought that the way we measure the flow of our days, the rhythm of our human lives, is governed by the steady internal song of a clear stone pulled from the earth. The crystal remembers the cadence of the universe, and we simply listen to its perfectly timed echoes as we drift through our days. This slow, rhythmic growth can sometimes achieve a scale that defies the imagination, demanding a sense of awe. Far below the Chihuahuan Desert, a staggering monument to patience exists in the dark. It is a subterranean chamber known as the Cave of the Crystals. For 500,000 years, this cavern was completely submerged in mineral-rich ancient groundwater, heated by a slow magma chamber resting deep beneath it. The water was kept at a perfectly stable, warm temperature, creating the ideal, undisturbed womb for crystals to form. In this silent, watery dark, molecules of calcium sulfate slowly drifted together, locking into place, year after year, century after century, millennia after millennia. Over this vast, unfathomable ocean of time, they grew into colossal beams of selenite. Some of these pale, luminous pillars reached lengths of nearly 40 feet, weighing over 50 tons. They crisscrossed the cavern like the fallen columns of a forgotten submerged temple. To envision this space is to understand the raw, quiet power of geologic time. Without eyes to see them, without light to illuminate their pale, pearlescent surfaces, these giants grew to the size of ancient trees, a lasting testament to what the earth can build when it is simply left alone in absolute peace and perfect stillness. Yet, a crystal does not always require thousands of years and crushing subterranean pressure to achieve its geometric grace. Some of the most intricate and breathtaking crystalline structures form in the fleeting span of a few minutes, high above our heads, in the cold, expansive silence of the winter sky. A snowflake is, in its truest form, a pure water crystal. Its journey begins as a microscopic speck of dust or pollen floating in the freezing upper atmosphere. As invisible water vapor in the cloud encounters this tiny anchor, it immediately transitions from a gas directly into a solid, skipping the liquid phase entirely. It forms a microscopic six-sided hexagonal prism of ice. From the corners of this tiny prism, branches begin to sprout, reaching outward into the cold air. Because the atmospheric conditions, the precise temperature and the delicate humidity fluctuate ever so slightly as the crystal tumbles downward through the clouds, each of its 6 arms grows in perfect mirrored synchrony, experiencing the exact same changes at the exact same moment. This is why every snowflake possesses such exquisite six-fold symmetry, a complex temporary mandala of ice. It is a fragile masterpiece, a tiny frozen record of the exact path it took through the sky, drifting softly to the earth to blanket the loud world in a quiet white hush. While water finds its crystalline form in the freezing clouds, other elements reveal their hidden architecture as they cool from a molten state. Bismuth, a heavy silvery metal, transforms into something entirely otherworldly when it's melted down and allowed to slowly, quietly cool. As the liquid metal begins to solidify, the crystal lattice forms at an uneven rate. The outer edges of the crystal grow much faster than the inner center. This creates a mesmerizing, hypnotic phenomenon known as a Hopper crystal. The resulting shape is a series of deep stepping stone formations, resembling a microscopic ancient pyramid or a perfectly carved infinite staircase spiraling inward. It looks like a city from a dream, built entirely of sharp angles and square, geometric terraces. But the wonder of bismuth does not stop at its architectural shape. As the crystal pulls oxygen from the surrounding air during the cooling process, a microscopic layer of oxide forms on its smooth surface. This ultra-thin layer interferes with the light that strikes it, bending and bouncing the wavelengths to create a dazzling iridescent spectrum. Electric blues, deep purples, warm golds, and vibrant pinks wash over the geometric terraces, an accidental masterpiece of light and structure born from a simple pool of cooling metal coming to rest. This transformative cooling process is echoed in the violent history of volcanic landscapes, which often hide the most serene and colourful surprises in their wake. Millions of years ago, when ancient lava flows tore across the earth, the molten rock was thick with trapped boiling gases. As the lava slowly cooled and hardened into dark basalt, these gas bubbles were frozen in place, leaving behind hollow, tear-shaped cavities within the solid stone. Over vast stretches of time, as the earth shifted and settled into quiet, groundwater seeped into these empty pockets. This slow-moving water was rich in dissolved silica and trace amounts of iron. Drop by patient drop, over thousands upon thousands of years, the water deposited microscopically thin layers of quartz along the inner walls of the cavity. The presence of the iron, combined with the natural low-level radiation of the surrounding Earth, slowly altered the crystalline structure, shifting its colour from clear to a deep, tranquil violet. This is the silent birth of an amethyst geode. The fiery origins of a volcanic eruption eventually give way to a hollow sanctuary, a secret cavern lined with sparkling purple points facing inward toward a quiet, empty centre. It is a beautiful reminder that even the most chaotic and intense forces of nature eventually cool, settle, and leave behind spaces of incredible, hidden peace. Sometimes, the creation of a crystal is not hidden deep underground or within solid rock, but happens openly under the wide, warm sky. Consider the vast, shallow, ancient seas that once covered parts of our continents. As the climate shifted over epochs, and the relentless sun beat down upon the shallow waters, the water slowly evaporated into the dry, blowing air. As the water vanished, it could no longer hold the vast quantities of sodium and chlorine dissolved within it. The atoms were forced out of their fluid embrace and had to find a new, solid structure. Because of the specific size and the exact electrical charge of sodium and chlorine atoms, they are compelled to bond in a perfectly alternating, rigid pattern. They stack together like microscopic building blocks, extending outward in all directions to form perfect, flawless cubes. This is halite, the mineral form of salt. The vast, blindingly white salt flats of the world are simply massive plains of these cubic crystals. It is a profound transformation, the vast, formless, restless ocean slowly giving way to the heat of the sky, leaving behind a glittering landscape composed entirely of perfect, sharp-edged cubes, the endless fluidity of water surrendering gracefully to the rigid, predictable, comforting geometry of the Earth. Yet the mineral world is wonderfully diverse, and not all stones that we revere follow the strict, rigid rules of a traditional crystal lattice. There is a stone that captures the essence of water and light without ever forming a sharp angle or a perfectly straight edge. Deep within the dry, arid outback of Australia, ancient seasonal rains once drenched the parched earth, soaking deep into the ancient rock and carrying dissolved silica downward. During the long dry periods, much of the water evaporated, leaving behind a soft silica gel in the cracks and voids of the earth. Over immense periods of time, this gel solidified, not into a structured crystal lattice, but into an orderly, repeating arrangement of microscopic silica spheres. This is the quiet origin of the opal. The spheres are packed together like oranges in a crate, and the tiny spaces between them act as a microscopic diffraction grating. When light enters the stone, it weaves through these tiny gaps, bending and splitting into the pure spectral colours of the rainbow. But the true magic of the opal is that it never fully lets go of its watery past. Trapped within its amorphous structure, making up a significant percentage of its weight, is actual water. It is a stone that holds a permanent, unevaporating reservoir of the ancient rains that birthed it, a solid echo of a gentle storm that passed over the earth millions of years ago, now captured forever as a quiet, shifting flame of colour in the dark. The quiet formation of crystals is not confined to our blue planet. It is a universal principle of cooling and settling that extends far beyond our atmosphere into the deep quiet of space. When you look up at the night sky and see the bright, glowing face of the moon, you're looking at a vast, ancient landscape of crystallized rock. The lighter, brighter areas of the moon, known as the lunar highlands, are primarily composed of a mineral called plagioclase feldspar. Billions of years ago, the young moon was covered in a deep global ocean of molten magma. As this immense magma ocean slowly began to cool over millions of years in the vacuum of space, the plagioclase feldspar was the first mineral to crystallize. Because these newly formed crystals were lighter than the surrounding liquid magma, they slowly floated upward to the surface, accumulating in a thick, glittering crust. This pale, crystallized crust is what we see shining down on us tonight, The moonlight that streams through your window, casting soft shadows across the room, is simply the sun's light bouncing off an unimaginably vast field of ancient crystals that drifted to the surface of another world eons ago. It is a silent, shining bridge of light connecting our resting world to the silent, crystallized plains of the moon. While the moon's surface cooled to form a crust of light rock, the deepest depths of our own Earth rely on unimaginable pressure to forge its most famous and enduring crystal. Far below the crust, deep within the Earth's mantle, over 100 miles beneath our resting bodies, the conditions are hostile and extreme. The heat is intense, and the weight of the overlying rock creates a crushing, immense pressure. It is here, in this dark, high-pressure crucible, that simple atoms of pure carbon are squeezed together so tightly that they are forced into a dense, incredibly strong tetrahedral structure. This is the slow birth of a diamond. The carbon atoms are locked together in a three-dimensional framework that is tighter and stronger than any other natural substance on Earth. But these deep Earth crystals would remain forever hidden if not for deep source volcanic eruptions. In ancient times, columns of magma blasted upward from the mantle at supersonic speeds, carrying the diamonds along for the ride. This violent, rapid ascent cooled the magma quickly, freezing the crystals in their ultimate form. Thus, a stone formed in the deepest, hottest, most crushing environment imaginable is delivered to the surface as a piece of ultimate, unyielding transparency, a clear, cool fragment of the Earth's deep, hidden heart brought into the light. And as you lie here, resting in the quiet dark, it is profoundly comforting to realize that this grand geological architecture is not merely a thing of the distant past. It is happening right now. At this very moment, deep within the walls of undiscovered caves, in the heated waters of geothermal springs, and in the slow cooling of rock beneath dormant volcanoes, crystals are still growing. Molecule by molecule, atom by atom, the Earth is silently building perfect geometric shapes. The process never stops. It is a slow, endless hum of creation that completely ignores the busy, fleeting worries of the surface world. There is no rush in the dark. There is no deadline for a quartz crystal to finish its facet, or for a geode to complete its purple lining. There is only the steady, patient accumulation of order, and you too are part of this natural, quiet world. You can borrow from the immense patience of the Earth. You can let your own thoughts settle, layer by layer, finding their own quiet order in the dark. As the Earth continues its slow, beautiful work far below, you are free to sink into your own deep, undisturbed rest, held safely and gently in the absolute stillness of the night. While the Earth continues its quiet work deep below, shaping diamonds in the crushing dark and slowly pulling perfect quartz from the walls of ancient hidden hollows, there are other stones that hold secrets of light and shadow, waiting patiently to be discovered. Imagine a stone resting in absolute pitch-black darkness. To the human eye, it is invisible, swallowed entirely by the absence of light. But if you were to bathe this specific crystal in ultraviolet rays, a spectrum of light completely invisible to our own senses, something deeply magical and transformative occurs. This is the phenomenon of fluorescence, a wondrous trick of atomic geometry, first closely studied in the beautifully geometric mineral known as fluorite. When the invisible ultraviolet light strikes the surface of a fluorite crystal, the energy does not simply pass through. Instead, the electrons orbiting the atoms within the stone absorb this unseen energy. They become momentarily excited, leaping outward into a wider, higher orbit. But they cannot sustain this heightened state. In a microscopic fraction of a second, the electrons calm, settling back down into their original quiet resting places. As they drop back into peace, they release that absorbed energy, exhaling it as a soft, luminous glow of visible light. A dark stone suddenly radiates a ghostly serene blue or a soft glowing violet. It is a beautiful reminder that even in the absolute dark there is invisible energy moving, shifting, and waiting to be transformed into a calming, radiant light. This silent exchange of energy takes on an entirely different, warmer form in the complex elongated crystals of tourmaline. While fluorite responds to the invisible spectrum of light, tourmaline awakens to the gentle, enveloping presence of warmth. Hidden within its intricate, deeply grooved columnar structure is a profound physical property known as pyroelectricity. When a piece of tourmaline is gently heated, perhaps by resting it in the palm of a warm hand, or leaving it to bathe in the afternoon sun, the entire internal architecture of the crystal responds. The subtle rise in temperature causes the atomic lattice to expand ever so slightly, shifting the positions of its internal ions. This microscopic stretching creates an electrical imbalance. One end of the elongated crystal develops a quiet, positive magnetic charge, while the exact opposite end becomes negatively charged. Centuries ago, Dutch traders navigating the long, quiet sea routes discovered this invisible property. They would place rough pieces of tourmaline near the warm embers of their hearth fires, watching in quiet wonder as the heated stones mysteriously pulled the fine, drifting white ash from the air, drawn by an invisible, static embrace. It is a stone that physically breathes in the ambient heat of the world and quietly exhales a subtle magnetic pull, a tiny solid engine of warmth and attraction resting quietly on the earth. As the body senses warmth, it naturally begins to soften, just as the rigid structure of the tourmaline gently expands. You might notice your own breath settling into a deeper, slower rhythm, mimicking the quiet, patient expansion and contraction of the natural world. There is nothing you need to hold on to tightly. The mind can simply drift, floating from the invisible magnetism of a warm stone to the shifting, hidden colours of the frozen north. Far away from the warm hearths of ancient traders, along the desolate, freezing and wildly beautiful coastlines of the far north, lies a stone that perfectly captures the elusive, shifting magic of the sky. At first glance, a rough piece of labradorite appears to be nothing more than a dull, dark grey rock, easily overlooked among the pebbles of a cold shoreline. But this stone is a master of illusion, hiding an optical phenomenon known as labradorescence. As you slowly turn the heavy grey stone in your hand, altering the angle of the light by just a fraction of a degree, the dull surface suddenly erupts in a sweeping, brilliant flash of iridescent peacock blue, pale, shimmering gold, and deep, vibrant copper. This is not pigment resting on the surface. Instead, over millions of years of incredibly slow cooling deep underground, the mineral separated into alternating microscopic layers of different feldspars. When pure light enters the stone, it hits these internal microscopic boundaries, bouncing back and forth, interfering with itself. The light waves mix and mingle, cancelling out some colours while amplifying others, creating a glowing, spectral flash that seems to hover just beneath the surface of the stone. Local Inuit legends whisper that the northern lights themselves once fell from the freezing sky, becoming trapped inside these dark rocks along the shore. It is a profound, comforting thought that something appearing so quiet, so grey, and so ordinary on the outside can hold an entire shifting aurora of light, just waiting for the right moment and the right perspective to gently reveal itself. While labradorite captures the shifting, freezing light of the northern skies, other crystals are born from the relentless, searing heat and the sweeping, shifting sands of the world's most arid landscapes. In the vast, silent expanses of the Sahara, where the wind tirelessly sculpts the dunes into endless waves, a completely different kind of beauty takes root. Here, buried just beneath the surface of the dry earth, delicate interlocking blades of stone slowly bloom in the dark. These are desert roses. They are not formed in deep, high-pressure magma chambers, but in the quiet, shallow spaces where rare, mineral-rich groundwater is drawn upward through the sand by capillary action. As the intense heat of the desert sun evaporates the water, it leaves behind dissolved minerals, usually gypsum or barite. These minerals crystallize, forming flat circular plates that intersect at precise angles, naturally mimicking the unfurling petals of a blooming rose. But the crystal does not grow in isolation. As the mineral plates expand, they gently swallow the surrounding grains of golden sand, incorporating the very desert itself into their structure. The result is a heavy, eternal flower, coloured by the earth, textured by the wind, and born from the slow, patient evaporation of hidden water. It is a perfect testament to the Earth's ability to create delicate floral geometry in the harshest, driest, and most unforgiving corners of the world. As the mind visualizes the sweeping, endless dunes of the desert, it is easy to let your own thoughts become like the fine, drifting sand, weightless, unanchored, simply settling wherever the quiet wind of your breath guides them. The heavy muscles of the body can sink deeper into the surface beneath you, grounding you, while your awareness expands upward, past the arid skies, reaching toward the profound silence of the cosmos. Long before the deserts were shaped by the wind, the quiet surface of the earth was occasionally interrupted by visitors from that vast, silent space. 15 million years ago, a massive meteorite tore through the Earth's atmosphere, striking the ground with unimaginable, world-altering force in what is now southern Germany. The impact was so intensely hot and devastatingly sudden that it instantly melted the Earth's crust, fusing terrestrial rock with the cosmic material of the meteorite. This boiling liquid glass was thrown high up into the quiet upper atmosphere. As it was suspended in the freezing, weightless grip of the sky, the molten droplets rapidly cooled, solidifying into deeply textured, translucent green stones before raining back down onto the prehistoric forests of the Czech Republic. This pale, olive-green glass is known as moldavite. It is classified as a tektite, a rare, beautiful marriage of heaven and earth. To hold a piece of moldavite is to hold a frozen, quieted moment of cosmic impact, a glassy teardrop born from the violent collision of a falling star and the sleeping Earth, now resting peacefully, its chaotic origins smoothed over by millions of years of silent waiting. This concept of capturing and bending the light from the sky takes on a deeply practical navigational magic in the misty, freezing waters of the North Atlantic. Hundreds of years ago, Norse seafarers navigated their open wooden longships through notoriously thick fogs and heavy grey cloud cover, guided by the quiet properties of a specific, perfectly clear crystal. They relied on a flawlessly transparent variety of calcite known as Iceland spar. This remarkable stone possesses an incredibly strong optical property called birefringence, or double refraction. When a single beam of light enters the perfectly clear rhombohedral crystal, the atomic structure immediately slows the light down and splits it into two distinct separate rays that travel at different speeds and angles. If you were to place a piece of Iceland spar over a drawn line, you would see two perfect parallel lines. The Viking navigators understood that by holding this sunstone up to the heavily overcast sky, and rotating it until the two split images of the hidden sun's polarized light matched in brightness, they could pinpoint the exact location of the sun, even when it was completely obscured by thick fog. The crystal acted as a silent, unwavering compass, a piece of solid geometry that could pull the truth of the light down through the dense grey mist, guiding travellers safely across the endless rolling dark of the ocean. Just as the sunstone pierces through the heavy fog to find the light, the steady rhythm of your breathing can easily pierce through any lingering thoughts of the day, guiding your mind into a deeper, more tranquil state of rest. Let the grey mists of the waking world simply dissolve, leaving only the quiet, steady awareness of the present moment, slow and regular, like the dripping of water in a deep hidden cave. It is in these deep hidden spaces where waterfalls drop by patient drop, that some of the Earth's most vibrant and intricately patterned stones are slowly brought into being. Consider the rich, deep, swirling greens of malachite. This stone does not form in the rapid cooling of lava or the intense pressure of the deep mantle. Instead, it is a secondary mineral, born from the slow, incredibly quiet weathering of copper ores near the surface of the Earth. Over tens of thousands of years, as carbonated water slowly seeps down through the cracks in the bedrock, it dissolves trace amounts of copper. Drop by drop, this heavy, mineral-rich water falls into empty subterranean cavities. As the water evaporates in the cool, damp dark, it leaves behind a microscopically thin layer of copper carbonate. Over millennia, these layers build upon one another, growing outward in bubbling, rounded masses that resemble the soft shapes of clouds or the smooth surface of boiling water frozen in time. When a mass of malachite is sliced open, it reveals a breathtaking interior of concentric, alternating bands of light and dark, vibrant green. These rings look exactly like the growth rings of an ancient petrified tree. Each dark band and each light band represents a subtle shift in the water's chemistry, a shift in the climate, a change in the quiet rhythm of the Earth above. It is a solid, heavy, profoundly green record of time passing in the dark, drop by gentle drop. This slow, dripping artistry of the subterranean world creates equally mesmerizing patterns in the high, freezing altitudes of the Andes Mountains. Deep inside the ancient, abandoned silver mines of Argentina, far removed from the biting winds and the bright sun, massive stalactites of deep, rosy pink quietly grew in the absolute blackness. This is rhodochrosite, a mineral composed of manganese carbonate. Much like malachite, it is formed by the slow, rhythmic dripping of mineral-rich water. Over countless centuries, the water deposited layer after layer of soft pink, deep rose and pale, milky white minerals, building massive, hanging pillars of stone that slowly reach toward the cavern floor. The ancient Incas, upon discovering these deep subterranean blooms of pink stone, believed they were the fossilized, petrified blood of their ancestral kings and queens, a sacred, protective energy eternally preserved in the rock. When these heavy pink stalactites are cut perfectly across, they reveal incredibly delicate scalloped patterns, resembling the intricate blooming petals of a subterranean lotus flower or the delicate repeating waves of a quiet tide. It is a stunning paradox that some of the softest, warmest, and most delicately patterned colours in the natural world were formed in the coldest, deepest, and most lightless environments imaginable. Yet, not all incredible formations in the mineral kingdom rely on this slow, meticulous ordering of atoms into perfect repeating layers. Sometimes the Earth moves too quickly, and the resulting chaos creates its own flawless, glassy perfection. When a volcano erupts, spewing molten rock across the landscape, the lava is a swirling, chaotic soup of unconnected atoms. Usually as the lava cools, it gives the atoms time to find each other, to link up, and to build the rigid geometric lattices of crystals like quartz or feldspar. But occasionally, the thick silica-rich lava is thrown into freezing water or exposed to the biting, frigid air, causing it to cool with astonishing, almost instant rapidity. The temperature drops so fast that the atoms are frozen in their tracks. They have no time to arrange themselves into an orderly repeating crystal structure. The result is obsidian, a magnificent heavy volcanic glass. Because it lacks a crystal lattice, it is technically an amorphous solid, a stone completely devoid of internal geometric boundaries. This lack of internal structure gives obsidian its defining characteristic. When it breaks, it fractures in perfectly smooth, curved, sweeping arcs, creating edges that are sharper than the finest surgical steel. It is the absolute stillness of chaos, a jet-black mirror formed in a fraction of a second, reminding us that there is a profound, smooth, and perfect beauty to be found in simply letting go of rigid order and allowing things to settle exactly as they fall. This beautifully chaotic cooling of magma also creates the perfect environment for entirely different, incredibly serene crystals to form in the final, dying breaths of a volcanic chamber. Deep beneath the earth, as a massive pocket of liquid magma slowly cools and solidifies into heavy granite, the process takes millions of years. As the common rock crystallizes, it leaves behind a highly concentrated watery fluid, rich with all the rare, unusual elements that did not fit into the standard everyday rocks. This superheated, pressurized fluid is squeezed into the final cracks and empty veins of the cooling granite, forming structures known as pegmatites. It is within these final watery pockets that beryl crystals begin to grow. When trace amounts of iron seep into this final mineral-rich soup, the beryl crystal absorbs it, transforming the clear stone into a mesmerizing, flawless, transparent pale blue. This is the birth of aquamarine. The name itself means water of the sea, and to gaze into a high-quality aquamarine is to look into a perfect, unmoving cube of the clearest, most tranquil tropical ocean. It is the very last creation of the fiery magma chamber, a final, peaceful exhalation of crystal-clear blue water, forever trapped and protected within the crushing, dark weight of the surrounding grey granite. And as the pale blue depths of the aquamarine settle into their eternal, unchanging stillness, we are reminded that the earth holds countless other pockets of hidden wonder, vast networks of caves, and silent, shifting elements, all waiting to be understood as we drift further along this quiet journey into the deep. We are continuing this journey into the deep, moving from the pale blue pockets of aquamarine hidden within heavy granite to the quiet, dark cavities of ancient dolomite rock in what is now the northern expanse of New York State. Here, nearly 500 million years ago, small, perfectly isolated pockets of mineral-rich water and dissolved silica became trapped within the solid stone. Unlike the vast majority of quartz crystals in the world, which must grow attached to a host rock, forming a single, pointed termination that reaches outward, these unique crystals experienced a vastly different genesis. They grew completely suspended in pockets of thick, soft, dark clay. With nothing rigid to anchor them and nothing to restrict their slow expansion, they grew evenly in all directions at once. The magnificent result is a double-terminated quartz crystal, famously known as a Herkimer diamond. 18 smooth, flawless facets naturally form without the touch of any human tool, creating a perfect, brilliantly clear geometric point at both ends. It is a beautiful, solid expression of profound freedom in the mineral world. When a stone is allowed to grow without being tied down to a foundation, it naturally seeks perfect, balanced symmetry, building itself outward from a quiet, floating center. This perfect crystalline clarity sometimes acts as a protective window, revealing entirely different, delicate worlds trapped within its transparent walls. Imagine holding a flawless piece of clear quartz that appears to hold a suspended, frozen burst of golden light. This breathtaking phenomenon occurs when incredibly thin, needle-like crystals of a different mineral, called rutile, grow inside the hollow cavity just before the liquid silica floods the space and slowly solidifies around them. The clear quartz gently envelops these delicate strands, acting as a permanent protective glass casing. These bright golden threads of titanium dioxide crisscross through the clear stone, resembling captured strands of bright sunlight or fine, luminous hair perfectly frozen in time. Historically and affectionately called Venus hairstone, this natural enclosure is a visual reminder that isolation is incredibly rare in nature. Even the clearest, most seemingly solitary stone often embraces, protects, and perfectly preserves another entirely different element, holding it perfectly still and safe for millions of years. And as you picture these delicate, suspended golden threads, completely protected from the shifting winds of the outside world, you might find the threads of your own racing thoughts beginning to thin, soften, and gently fade. The heavy muscles in your shoulders can let go of their tension, allowing gravity to pull them comfortably down into the surface beneath you. You can simply observe the images and stories as they arise, letting them drift by without needing to analyze them or hold on to them. The resting mind naturally becomes as clear and receptive as a transparent stone, ready to simply transmit whatever gentle light passes through it. This concept of capturing and transmitting light takes on a profoundly literal, almost magical form in a soft, unassuming mineral found far away from the deep bedrock, resting instead in the dry, blindingly white salt playas of the American West. Ulexite is a pale, chalky-looking stone that forms in complex, tightly packed bundles of parallel microscopic fibres. It looks like a simple, opaque white rock. But when a piece of ulexite is cut flat and polished smooth on both its top and bottom surfaces, it reveals an astonishing optical secret. If you place this flat stone over a printed image or a line of written text, the microscopic, densely packed crystal fibres act exactly like natural geological fibre optic cables. They instantly draw the light in the image up from the bottom surface and project it perfectly onto the top surface, making the text appear as though it is floating miraculously right on top of the stone. Known affectionately by geologists as the TV stone, this humble white rock effortlessly performs a feat of light manipulation that took human engineers decades to master, proving that the silent Earth has always been the original, masterful architect of light and unseen connection. While the ulexite quietly guides the light upward from the dust, other, heavier stones have long guided human imagination, transforming solid rock into the sweeping, painted vaults of the heavens. High in the remote, unforgiving Sarisang mines of the Hindu Kush mountains in Afghanistan, buried beneath heavy, silent snows and jagged, freezing peaks, lies a stone of unimaginably deep celestial blue, beautifully flecked with glittering golden pyrite. This is the legendary lapis lazuli. For thousands of years, this complex rock, a mixture of the blue mineral lazurite, white calcite, and golden pyrite, was considered far more precious than gold itself. During the height of the Renaissance, master artists and their apprentices would take this heavy, solid stone and painstakingly grind it down into an incredibly fine, soft powder. Through a long, laborious process of washing and purifying, they created the legendary pigment known as ultramarine. It was the only colour in the known world vibrant, rich, and pure enough to paint the deep, infinite skies of masterworks and the flowing blue robes of celestial figures. It is a stunning, grounding realization that the soft, sweeping, ethereal blue skies we admire in ancient, hushed museums are not made of airy, weightless pigments, but of crushed, heavy stone, pulled from the highest, coldest mountains on Earth and gently brushed onto a canvas to perfectly mimic the open heavens. The infinite sky finds its reflection not only in the high, frozen mountains, but in the warm, rhythmic and gentle lapping of the ocean tide. In a single, deeply isolated, mountainous region of the Dominican Republic, the Earth has managed to crystallize the exact color, temperature, and feeling of the Caribbean Sea. Here, deep within ancient, extinct volcanic tubes hidden beneath the dense, humid canopy of the tropical forest, superheated gases once pushed a highly specific mixture of rare minerals upward toward the surface. As they slowly cooled in the dark, restricted spaces of the volcanic rock, they formed larimar, a striking and incredibly rare variety of the mineral pectolite. The stone features a captivating, swirling, mottled pattern of light sea blue, pale turquoise, and frothy, foamy white. It looks exactly like the bright tropical sunlight dancing and refracting on the surface of shallow, crystal-clear ocean waters. Because it was created by a highly specific, totally localized geological event, it is found absolutely nowhere else on the entire planet. Larimar is a tiny, solid ocean, a pocket-sized reminder of calm shores and gentle, rolling tides, born entirely from the fiery violence of a volcano, but finding its ultimate, lasting form as an emblem of profound, watery peace. As you visualize those soft white crests of water gently rolling over pale blue sunlit shallows, you can feel your own internal rhythm gracefully slowing down to match that gentle, endless tide, ebbing and flowing. The rise and fall of your own chest naturally becomes a quiet, predictable wave. There is nowhere else you need to be tonight, nothing you need to navigate or figure out. Just the steady, peaceful drift of your own breathing, washing in and washing out, smoothing the edges of the mind just as the tide smooths the stones on the shore. This soft, undulating movement of light and water smoothly carries us from the bright, sunlit ocean back up to the quiet, silvery mystery of the night sky, reflected perfectly in the smooth, milky depths of the moonstone. Much like the iridescent labradorite we encountered earlier, moonstone is a member of the feldspar mineral family, but its internal microscopic structure creates a vastly different and incredibly soothing atmosphere. As the stone slowly formed and cooled deep underground, alternating incredibly thin layers of two different minerals, orthoclase and albite, stacked upon one another like pages in a microscopic transparent book. But instead of flashing with fiery metallic colours, these translucent layers scatter, entering light in a beautiful, diffused phenomenon known as a dulurescence. When a soft light hits the smooth, domed surface of a polished moonstone, a pale, ghostly blue or a soft, pearlescent white glow seems to billow and float just beneath the surface. It moves liquidly, shifting and gliding as the stone is gently turned in the hand. It perfectly mimics the soft, diffused, incredibly quiet light of a full moon filtering through thin, high-altitude clouds on a calm night. To hold a moonstone is to hold a captured beam of moonlight, a permanent piece of nocturnal quiet that you can keep with you, even in the brightest, loudest hours of the day. Yet, sometimes the vast, dark sky gives us far more than just a soft, glowing reflection. Sometimes, it physically drops a breathtaking, unimaginable masterpiece directly onto the sleeping surface of the earth. Imagine a heavy, dark rock falling from the freezing, absolute vacuum of space, surviving the fiery atmospheric plunge to bury itself deep in the quiet soil of our world. When sliced open and polished, a specific, incredibly rare type of meteorite known as a palisite reveals an interior that looks like spectacular alien stained glass. Embedded within a shining, solid metallic matrix of pure iron and nickel are dozens of flawless, translucent golden-green crystals of olivine, known in the gem world as peridot. These green crystals did not form in the crust of our Earth. They crystallized billions of years ago in the deep, molten core mantle boundary of an ancient forming asteroid that was later shattered by a cataclysmic cosmic collision. The green crystals floated freely in the liquid metal until they froze together in the absolute cold of space, wandering the dark void for eons. It is a profound, mind-expanding shift in scale and origin. The beautiful bright green peridot resting quietly on a museum display did not grow in the earth beneath our feet, but crystallized in the dark, silent depths of the early solar system, surviving an explosion and a billions of miles journey just to rest peacefully in the palm of a human hand. This epic journey of heavy, beautiful stones travelling great, relentless distances is beautifully echoed on a much smaller, yet equally mesmerizing scale, on certain quiet, hidden shorelines of our own world. Along the rugged, misty coast of Big Sur in California, nestled between towering green cliffs and the crashing dark blue Pacific, there are isolated beaches where the sand is not the typical pale gold or white. Instead, the shoreline is painted in deep, mesmerizing shades of violet and vibrant, heavy plum. This striking phenomenon is born high up in the steep coastal mountains, where heavy, unrich crystals of purple and pink almandine garnet grew inside the dark, metamorphic bedrock millions of years ago. As the relentless winter rains and the quiet, persistent streams slowly weathered the mountains down over millennia, the heavy, resilient garnets were freed from the rock and washed away, tumbling down steep, winding creeks toward the ocean. Because solid garnet crystals are significantly denser and heavier than ordinary quartz sand, the ocean waves act as a massive natural sieve. The water sorts the grains perfectly by weight, leaving long sweeping swathes of pure pulverized gemstone glittering brilliantly along the tide line. The beach itself becomes a vast crushed jewel, a beautiful settling conclusion to a slow, downward journey from the high, silent peaks to the edge of the deep, restless water. And at the very edge of the water, where the damp, heavy sand meets the charged, stormy sky, another incredible geological transformation can occur in the absolute blink of an eye. When a powerful lightning bolt strikes a sandy beach or a sweeping desert dune, it unleashes a temperature hotter than the surface of the sun, often reaching up to 50,000 degrees Fahrenheit, driving that immense energy directly into the ground in a fraction of a single millisecond. This intense, unimaginable and sudden heat instantly melts the silica sand along the exact branching path of the electrical current. As the surrounding earth cools the melted sand almost immediately, it forms a structure known as a fulgurite. This is a hollow branching tube of rough textured glass, perfectly tracing the jagged, chaotic shape of the lightning bolt as it travelled downward and dissipated into the earth. It is literally fossilized lightning. The chaotic, fleeting, and terrifyingly loud power of a thunderstorm is suddenly captured, silenced, and frozen solid forever, leaving behind a delicate, glassy root system buried invisibly in the sand. It is a quiet reminder that even the most fleeting, intangible, and intense energy in the universe leaves a lasting structural memory, finally coming to rest in the quiet earth below. Just as the lightning leaves a permanent mark of extreme sudden temperature, the gentle, subtle gradients of heat resting deep within the earth can paint a single crystal with two distinct, perfectly harmonious colours over thousands of years. Deep in the Anaheim mine of eastern Bolivia, nestled in the dense, remote roots of the tropical forest, there exists a quartz crystal that holds a perfect, beautiful balance of duality. This is the rare and captivating stone known as ametrine. Due to a highly unusual temperature gradient in the bedrock surrounding the crystal cavity as it formed, one half of the growing stone was exposed to slightly more geothermal heat than the other. This incredibly subtle difference in warmth caused the trace iron impurities on one side of the crystal to oxidize differently than the other. The cooler side created the deep royal purple of an amethyst, while the slightly warmer half oxidized into the bright golden honey yellow of a citrine. They are not two stones glued together. They are a single, continuous, unbroken crystal lattice that smoothly transitions from night to day, from cool violet to warm, glowing amber. It is a stone of perfect equilibrium, proving that two contrasting states can exist within the exact same structure without conflict, living together in a quiet, unified harmony. As the deep purple and the soft gold blend seamlessly into one another within the heart of the stone, so too can the layers of your own consciousness gently fold and soften, slipping away from the active, bright surface of the day and sinking down into the deep, restorative quiet of the night. The earth holds its balance perfectly, and you are held by the earth, sinking into the peaceful, supportive darkness as the journey winds deeper still. We are continuing this journey into the deep, moving from the harmonious dual-coloured balance of ametrine, quietly into the geometric perfection that the earth conjures completely unassisted. Deep within the hills of northern Spain, a striking contrast lies buried in the soft marlstone. Here, the iron sulfide mineral pyrite expresses itself with a rigid mathematical precision. While most stones tumble into irregular fragments, these specific crystals grow into absolutely flawless six-sided cubes. They appear so perfectly formed, with such straight, sharp edges and smooth, mirror-like metallic faces, that it is almost impossible to believe they were not machined by human technology. Yet these shining golden brass cubes are born entirely from the absolute silence of the earth. They are the visible macroscopic result of invisible iron and sulfur atoms bonding in a perfectly repeating three-dimensional cubic lattice over millions of years. To trace your finger along the perfectly straight edge of a natural pyrite cube is to touch the fundamental, unchanging mathematics of the universe, a quiet reminder that beneath the chaotic, weathered surface of the world, there exists a profound, unwavering and beautifully strict order. This strict, sharp-edged geometry slowly gives way to an entirely different, infinitely softer shape when we travel away from the dry rock and descend into the damp, echoing chambers of a limestone cave. In these lightless, isolated pools of subterranean water, the earth performs a slow, rhythmic meditation. A single grain of sand falls into a shallow pool. High above from the ceiling of the cavern, water rich in dissolved calcium carbonate falls drop by patient drop. As each drop hits the pool, it gently turns and rolls that tiny grain of sand. The water leaves behind a microscopically thin coating of smooth white calcite. Because the dripping water constantly agitates the grain, keeping it from sticking to the floor, the calcite layers build up evenly on all sides. Over thousands of years, this gentle turning creates a perfectly spherical, completely smooth stone known as a cave pearl. They gather in small, nest-like depressions on the cave floor, resembling clutches of smooth, pale eggs, completely sheltered from the wind and the sun. It is a stunning realization that the softest, most perfectly rounded stones in nature are not carved by violent rivers or heavy glaciers, but by the impossibly light, endlessly repeated touch of falling water in the absolute dark. As you imagine the slow, gentle rolling of those smooth white stones, you might find the sharp edges of your own day beginning to wear away. The mind rounds off its heavy corners, becoming smooth and untroubled. The body grows heavier, settling into the mattress, and you can just allow yourself to be gently turned by the quiet rhythm of your breath, letting go of any need to hold on to the rigid structures of the waking world. While the cave pearl is born from the endless dripping of water, there is another stone that swallows the water entirely, holding it captive in a silent, suspended embrace. Imagine holding a smooth, translucent banded agate, formed millions of years ago in the cooling gas bubbles of ancient volcanic rock. If you hold this stone up to a soft light and tilt it gently, you will see something miraculous moving inside. Hidden deep within the solid walls is a perfectly sealed cavity, and within it is a pocket of liquid containing a tiny shifting air bubble. This is an enhydro agate. The water trapped inside is not from our modern rain. It is ancient groundwater, perhaps even primordial ocean water, completely sealed away from the atmosphere since the moment the quartz solidified around it eons ago. The water has remained pristine, untouched by sunlight, wind, or human history. To watch that ancient bubble slowly glide back and forth inside the solid rock is to look directly into a prehistoric time capsule. It is a comforting, profound thought that even the most ancient, fluid, and fleeting elements of the earth can be cradled, protected, and kept perfectly safe forever within a fortress of solid stone. This illusion of graceful movement trapped within solid rock takes on a warm, golden, and entirely optical form in the mesmerizing depths of a stone found deep in the dry, sweeping landscapes of South Africa. Tiger's Eye is a masterclass in slow, geological transformation. Millions of years ago, the rock began as a completely different, fibrous blue mineral known as crocidolite. Over vast stretches of geological time, silica-rich groundwater seeped through these densely packed fibers. Molecule by slow molecule, the quartz dissolved and perfectly replaced the original mineral, while oxidizing the iron within, turning the deep blue fibers into a glowing amber gold. The result is a solid quartz crystal that perfectly preserves the fine, parallel structure of those ancient fibers. When a polished piece of tiger's eye is turned under a soft light, a bright, luminous band of golden silk appears to glide effortlessly across its surface. This captivating phenomenon is called chatoyancy, derived from the French phrase for cat's eye. The light dances and flows smoothly across the stone, exactly like light reflecting off a spool of golden thread. It is a solid, heavy rock that has captured the fluid, sweeping motion of light, preserving a millions of years-long process of transformation into a single, shifting flash of gold. As the golden light shifts and fades, it gracefully gives way to a colour that feels as light and expansive as the open sky, hidden within a stone of surprising grounding weight. On the large, incredibly diverse island of Madagascar, deep within ancient sedimentary rock, one can find heavy, unassuming grey geodes. But when these dense, spherical rocks are opened, they reveal an interior lined with large, flawlessly transparent crystals of a soft, breathtakingly pale blue. This is celestine, derived from the Latin word for heavenly. The delicate, icy blue colour gives the crystals an appearance of profound fragility and airy lightness, as if they were made of spun sugar or frozen morning mist. Yet, when you hold a piece of celestine in your hands, the sensory experience contradicts the visual one. Celestine is composed of strontium sulfate, an exceptionally dense heavy element. The stone feels unusually substantial, pulling your hand gently downward with a comforting, surprising gravity. This is the beautiful paradox of the heavenly stone. It offers the mind the expansive, soaring freedom of a clear, pale blue sky, while simultaneously providing the body with a deep, heavy, anchoring weight, holding you safely to the earth. You can welcome that same comforting weight into your own resting body now. Feel the dense, gentle gravity pulling the muscles of your back, your arms and your legs deeper into absolute relaxation. The mind can float, expanding into the pale, airy blue of the quiet night, while the physical body remains perfectly heavy, perfectly supported, and perfectly still. This descent from the expansive sky back into the heavy, sheltering earth reveals that the mineral kingdom is not solely born from cold gases and cooling magma. Sometimes it is the spectacular final resting place of ancient life. 70 million years ago, in the shallow, warm seas that once covered the eastern edge of the Rocky Mountains, a vibrant ecosystem thrived. When ancient shelled creatures known as ammonites completed their life cycles, their spiraled shells sank into the soft, dark mud of the ocean floor. As the oceans retreated and the mud was compressed under miles of heavy sediment, the aragonite that made up those shells underwent a profound transformation. The immense weight of the earth rearranged the microscopic layers of the shell into a highly organized, tightly stacked crystalline structure. Today, when these fossilized shells are unearthed, they are no longer just bone or stone, they have become amylite. Because of the precise, microscopic spacing of these new crystal layers, the dark, fossilized shells instantly flash with spectacular, fiery sheets of iridescent red, vibrant emerald green, and deep, shimmering violet when they catch the light. It is a stunning resurrection of colour. The quiet, dark death of a prehistoric sea creature is eventually, after millions of years of heavy, silent pressure, transformed into one of the rarest, most brilliantly colourful gemstones on the face of the earth. While amylite took 70 million years to permanently capture the colours of the light, there is another extraordinary stone that actively changes its colour in response to the light of the present moment, shifting its mood exactly as the day shifts into night. Hakmonite is a rare, sulphur-rich variety of the mineral sodalite. Pulled from the lightless mines of Greenland or Afghanistan, it first appears as a pale, almost translucent grey stone, but when exposed to the ultraviolet rays of the sun, an invisible atomic reaction takes place. The energy of the sunlight is absorbed into the crystal lattice, physically altering the way the stone absorbs and reflects colour. Within minutes, the pale grey stone blooms into a rich, saturated deep violet or a vibrant raspberry pink. This incredible chameleon-like property is called tenebrescence, but the true magic of Hakmonite reveals itself when the sun goes down. If you place the vibrant pink stone back into the deep, quiet dark, it slowly, quietly releases that stored energy. Over several hours, the vibrant colour gently fades away, and the stone returns to its pale, restful, original state. It is a crystal that literally absorbs the energy of the bright day, and then peacefully fades into a deep, colourless sleep when the night finally arrives. Just as the Hackmanite slowly releases the bright accumulated energy of the sun to find its quiet resting state, you too can let the vivid colours and the busy energy of your day simply fade away. The night is a time for softening, for emptying out, and for allowing the vibrant noise of the waking world to dissolve into a gentle, neutral, and deeply comforting silence. As the rigid structures of the day continue to soften, we find an echo of this yielding nature in a mineral that completely rejects the strict geometric rules of traditional crystals. Chrysocolla is a captivating stone of bright cyan blue and rich, earthy green. It forms in the oxidation zones of heavy copper ore bodies, often found in the dry, arid landscapes of the American Southwest or the steep mountains of Chile. Unlike quartz, pyrite or diamonds, chrysocolla does not possess an internal, repeating, rigid crystal lattice. It is amorphous, meaning its molecules are arranged in a relaxed, free-flowing, completely unregimented pattern. Because it lacks this rigid internal skeleton, pure chrysocolla is incredibly soft, easily scratched, and completely fragile on its own. To survive the harshness of the earth, it rarely grows alone. Instead, it naturally seeks out and intimately blends with harder, more resilient minerals like clear quartz or dark, heavy malachite, swirling its bright blue colours directly into their solid structures. It is a beautiful testament to the power of flexibility and collaboration within the natural world. Chrysocolla teaches us that something does not need to be rigid, sharp, or solitary to be enduringly beautiful. It simply needs to find a way to flow gracefully into the strength of its surroundings. This concept of yielding to the environment takes on a massive, awe-inspiring scale when we travel from the dry copper mines to the most extreme, freezing, and isolated continent on the planet. Beneath the immense weight of the Antarctic ice sheet, resting 2 miles below the blinding white surface, the rules of crystallization are pushed to their limits. We often think of ice as temporary cubes in a glass, or fragile snowflakes melting on warm skin. But scientifically, naturally occurring ice is recognized as a true mineral, and deep under the immense pressure of the ancient Antarctic glaciers, where the temperature is shockingly cold and the movement is agonizingly slow, the water molecules are forced into an incredibly dense, perfect alignment. Over hundreds of thousands of years, undisturbed by any surface weather, these molecules link up to form single, continuous ice crystals of unimaginable size. Glaciologists drilling deep into the ancient ice cores have discovered single, solid crystals of ice that measure up to 50 feet long. They are colossal, invisible pillars of frozen water, silently supporting the weight of a continent. It is a staggering shift in perspective, reminding us that the fragile temporary frost we see in the winter is just a tiny, fleeting echo of the massive, ancient and enduring crystal architecture that sleeps quietly in the deep, freezing dark of the world. From the deep, unbroken ice of the frozen south, we travel back through time to a landscape that was once defined by its warmth and its eventual total drying. Millions of years ago, when ancient sea levels dropped, vast stretches of soft mud were left exposed to the relentless prehistoric sun. As the mud dried out, it shrank and cracked, forming deep, intersecting hexagonal fissures across the barren landscape. The oceans eventually returned, burying this cracked mud under deep layers of heavy sediment. Millions of years passed, and groundwater slowly seeped into those buried cracks. This water carried dissolved calcium, which very slowly began to crystallize within the empty spaces. First, a thin layer of dark brown aragonite lined the walls of the fractures, and then bright, warm, golden yellow calcite completely filled in the remaining gaps. The result is a septarian nodule, known as a dragonstone. When these heavy, round boulders are unearthed and sliced perfectly in half, they reveal a spectacular network of golden crystal veins holding the dark, fossilized mud perfectly together. It is a geological masterpiece of restoration. The Earth took a landscape that was broken, dried out, and deeply fractured, and over millions of patient years, it filled every single crack with bright golden crystal, turning the wounds of the Earth into its most breathtaking and beautifully healed scars. And as you rest here, considering the profound ability of the deep Earth to slowly, quietly repair what was once broken, you can allow your own mind to absorb that same patient, healing energy. The deep quiet of the night is your own time to settle, to fill in the spaces left by the busy day, and to drift effortlessly toward the hidden, glowing heart of the stones that still wait to be discovered in the gentle dark. We're continuing this journey into the deep, moving quietly from the beautifully healed golden scars of the dragonstone and drifting effortlessly toward the hidden, glowing heart of the stones that still wait to be discovered in the gentle dark. We often think of stones as silent receivers of light, waking only when the bright sun touches them and going entirely dark when the night falls. But deep within certain ancient zinc-rich mines, there are minerals that refuse to let the light go so easily. When a piece of willemite is bathed in bright, energetic ultraviolet rays, it glows with a vibrant neon green. But the true wonder happens the exact moment the light source is completely turned off. Instead of instantly plunging back into darkness, the stone continues to glow. This is the profoundly slow, patient phenomenon of phosphorescence. Unlike a quick flash, the electrons within the willemite's atomic structure become temporarily trapped in microscopic structural flaws known as color centers. They are held there, suspended in a state of high energy, and can only manage to escape and fall back down to their resting state one by one. As each electron slowly drops back into its quiet place over minutes, or sometimes even hours, it releases a tiny, silent photon of green light. The rock itself becomes a slow-release battery of illumination, a solid object that perfectly remembers the bright day and gently, patiently whispers the light back into the pitch-black void. This patient memory of the environment is not limited to holding on to light. Sometimes, a crystal permanently records the exact shifting chemistry of the Earth as it grew. Deep within a cooling pocket of subterranean magma, a crystal of tourmaline begins to form. In its earliest years, the surrounding superheated watery fluid is rich in the element manganese. As the crystal slowly pulls these atoms into its rigid lattice, it builds a core of brilliant translucent pink. But the Earth is never entirely still. Over thousands of years, the chemical composition of that underground fluid slowly shifts. The manganese becomes scarce, and suddenly, trace amounts of iron and titanium wash into the cavity. The crystal does not stop growing, and it does not break. It simply adapts. It begins to weave these new elements into its outer layers, seamlessly transitioning from a pink core to a vibrant leafy green exterior. When this remarkable stone is found and sliced across its width, it perfectly resembles a tiny crystallized slice of a watermelon. It is a beautiful, solid timeline of an ancient change in the weather deep underground, proving that a crystal can gracefully embrace a complete shift in its surroundings and turn it into a masterpiece of contrasting color. Just as the tourmaline effortlessly adapts to the changing chemical currents of the deep Earth, your own resting mind can simply adapt to the gentle, deepening currents of sleep. There is no need to resist the heavy, comfortable pull of gravity. As the scenes shift and the colours slowly blend, you can simply let your awareness soften, flowing gracefully from one thought to the next, entirely undisturbed and perfectly safe. This gentle flow of awareness leads us away from the bold, solid colours of the tourmaline and into the delicate, airy architecture of a mineral that looks as though it could blow away in a gentle breeze. Inside the dark, rounded cavities of heavy, cooling basalt lava, a mineral named scholasite begins to quietly bloom. Unlike the blocky golden cubes of pyrite or the sharp, heavy points of quartz, scholasite grows in impossibly thin, fragile needles. They radiate outward from a single central point in a perfect three-dimensional starburst. These delicate, chalky white fibres look exactly like the soft, feathery down of a dandelion clock, or a burst of pure winter frost instantly frozen in the centre of a black volcanic rock. The physical contrast is breathtaking. The basalt is heavy, dense, and born of violent, crushing volcanic pressure, yet it cradles and protects these perfectly fragile hair-like crystals, allowing them to stretch out in absolute silence. It is a stunning reminder that the harshest, most unyielding environments in nature are often the very places that nurture the most delicate, intricate, and beautiful forms of quiet life. This concept of extreme softness existing within the harsh, rocky crust of the earth reaches its absolute pinnacle in a mineral that you can easily scratch with nothing more than the gentle press of your own fingernail. We frequently associate stones with extreme durability, with unyielding resistance to the passage of time. But talc, a magnesium silicate mineral, takes an entirely different evolutionary path. It is officially recognized as the softest mineral on the planet, resting at the very bottom, number 1, on the Mohs scale of mineral hardness. Talc is formed deep underground through the hydrothermal alteration of heavier, harder rocks. As hot, mineral-rich water flows through the deep crust, it chemically softens the surrounding stone, rearranging its atoms into microscopic, loosely connected sheets. Because the physical bonds between these layers are incredibly weak, they easily slide past one another with almost zero friction. When you pick up a piece of raw, unpolished talc, it does not feel rough or abrasive. It feels incredibly smooth, greasy, and soft, almost like a heavy bar of silk soap. It is a profound geological philosophy made solid. Sometimes, the best way to survive the crushing, shifting pressures of the deep earth is not to build an impenetrable, rigid fortress, but to become entirely yielding, smooth, and endlessly adaptable. From the soft, yielding white sheets of talc, we drift smoothly into a stone that holds a warm, fiery, and deeply comforting internal light. In the dry, sun-drenched terrains of southern India and the ancient lava flows of Oregon, a specific type of feldspar grows with a hidden, glittering secret. During the incredibly slow crystallization process, microscopic platelets of pure elemental copper are pushed out of the growing feldspar lattice. They cannot escape the solidifying rock, so they become permanently suspended within it, perfectly aligning themselves along the internal invisible crystal planes. The result is a stone affectionately known as sunstone. When a polished sunstone is gently turned in the hand, the ambient light penetrates the translucent surface and strikes those millions of perfectly aligned microscopic copper mirrors. The stone instantly flashes with a phenomenon called eventurescence. It looks exactly as if the rock has been filled with suspended, floating golden confetti, or as if a tiny, warm ember of a dying fire has been permanently captured inside the glass. It is a pocket of perpetual warmth, a piece of the earth that has managed to catch the bright, scattering rays of the afternoon sun and hold them safely within its solid, quiet core. As you imagine that soft, internal golden light, you might feel a similar, comforting warmth settling into the very centre of your chest. The deep, rhythmic beating of your heart is like that quiet, steady ember, radiating a gentle, soothing energy outward through your shoulders, down your arms, and all the way to your fingertips. The body is safe, the room is quiet, you're simply resting, heavy and glowing in the dark. While the sunstone holds a scattered microscopic glitter, there are other stones that achieve a scale of absolute, flawless clarity that defies human comprehension. In the early years of the 20th century, deep within the premier mine of South Africa, a mine superintendent was walking the rough, dusty floor of the pit when he saw a bright flash of light reflecting off the dirt wall. Embedded in the rock was a crystal so impossibly large and perfectly clear that he initially thought it was a piece of glass planted there as a practical joke. It was the legendary Cullinan diamond. Weighing a staggering 3,106 carats, it remains the largest gem-quality rough diamond ever discovered on the planet. But the true, awe-inspiring fact of the Cullinan is not merely its immense physical size, it is its profound origin. This massive block of pure, transparent carbon was forged hundreds of miles deep within the Earth's mantle, under heat and pressure so extreme it is difficult to visualize. Yet, when crystallographers carefully examined the massive clear stone, they discovered that its flat, incredibly smooth external faces indicated it was not a complete crystal. This giant, heavy block of pure, unyielding light was simply a broken fragment. It had snapped off an even larger, unimaginably vast diamond crystal deep in the earth before being carried to the surface in a supersonic eruption of magma. It leaves us with the stunning, humbling realization of the invisible, colossal architecture that still sleeps, undiscovered, in the deep, untouchable dark beneath our feet. This unseen interplay of light and deep structure can sometimes result in a stone that seems to actively converse with its environment, changing its very identity as the bright day gives way to the shadowed night. In the 19th century, deep in the emerald mines of the freezing, rugged Ural Mountains in Russia, miners unearthed a stone that played a breathtaking trick on the eyes. By the bright bluish-white light of the afternoon sun, the crystal appeared as a lush, vibrant, deep emerald green. But when the miners took those exact same stones down into the dark tunnels, illuminating them only with the warm, flickering reddish glow of a candle, the crystals instantly transformed into a rich, deep, purplish ruby red. This is alexandrite, a rare variety of the mineral chrysoberyl. Its atomic structure contains precisely the right amount of the trace element chromium to absorb a very specific narrow band of yellow light. Because sunlight is rich in green and blue wavelengths, the stone reflects pure green during the day. But because candlelight is rich in red wavelengths, the stone reflects pure red at night. It is a stone that lives a beautifully dual life, seamlessly bridging the bright, active energy of the sun and the quiet, flickering intimacy of the night fire. As the colours softly shift and change, so too does the quiet, resonant energy of the stones themselves. We typically think of rocks as dull, heavy, and completely silent objects. But in specific, highly localised pockets of the world, there exists a type of clear quartz that has grown with such astonishing internal perfection that it behaves entirely like a finely crafted musical instrument. These unique crystals are known as singing quartz, because their internal atomic lattice is so flawlessly aligned, and because they are completely devoid of any microscopic internal fractures or dampening mineral inclusions. Physical sound waves travel through them with almost zero resistance. If you take two of these long, clear, wand-like crystals and gently, softly tap them together, they do not produce a dull, rocky thud. Instead, they emit a high, sustained, incredibly clear bell-like tone. It is a pure acoustic resonance, a high-pitched, ringing song that seems to hang suspended in the air long after the stones have physically parted. It is a magical, almost ethereal sound, proving that deep within the silent, unmoving earth, there is a perfect mathematical geometry, capable of singing a pure, flawless note when gently awakened. Listen to the quiet resonance of the space around you right now. As the imaginary bell tone of the quartz slowly fades out into silence, your own mind can follow that fading sound, descending deeper and deeper into the quiet. The space between your thoughts grows longer, wider, and more peaceful, just like the empty, echoing air after a beautiful note has been struck. This perfect crystalline alignment is a slow, methodical process. But the Earth is also capable of creating sweeping glassy beauty in a single, terrifying instant of cosmic energy. 29 million years ago, the vast, sweeping sands of the Sahara Desert were completely undisturbed. Suddenly, a massive meteorite entered the Earth's atmosphere. It did not strike the ground and form a deep crater. Instead, the immense atmospheric friction and pressure caused the meteorite to explode violently in the air, miles above the desert floor. This rare phenomenon, known as an airburst, unleashed a flash of heat so unimaginably intense that it instantly melted hundreds of square miles of the pale, quartz-rich sand below. In a fraction of a second, the boiling liquid sand cooled and solidified, leaving behind scattered translucent pieces of pale yellow and pale green glass. This is Libyan desert glass. Millions of years later, this softly glowing yellow glass would be carefully collected by the ancient Egyptians, who carved it into a beautiful sacred scarab beetle to rest quietly in the golden pectoral of King Tutankhamun. The pharaoh rested with a piece of the melted desert on his chest, a solid, beautiful memory of the day the sky caught fire and turned the blowing, shifting sands into a permanent cooling sea of golden glass. As the fiery heat of the ancient airburst cools into perfect pale glass, we return to the quiet, damp soil of the Earth, where crystals find their balance not through cosmic violence, but through a slow, incredibly specific mathematical union. Deep within the metamorphic rocks of the Appalachian Mountains, a dark, heavy mineral called staurolite forms under great heat and slow pressure. As the staurolite crystals grow, they often experience a fascinating geological phenomenon known as crystal twinning. Instead of growing as solitary, individual blocks, two separate crystals will begin to grow from the exact same microscopic starting point, permanently sharing the same atomic lattice. But because of the strict rules of their internal geometry, they do not grow parallel to one another. They are mathematically forced to intersect at an exact angle of either 60 degrees or precisely 90 degrees. As the surrounding softer rock weathers away over millions of years, these dense, heavy crystals are left behind in the dirt, perfectly resembling naturally formed dark, heavy crosses. Known in local folklore as fairy crosses, they are a stunning example of how the invisible, strict laws of atomic geometry can express themselves perfectly in the macroscopic world, creating an unbroken symbol of intersection, balance, and shared foundations right there in the quiet Earth. And as we observe these two distinct paths perfectly crossing and supporting one another in the deep, damp soil, we too can find our own perfect balance in the night, allowing the conscious mind and the sleeping body to finally intersect, finding a shared, quiet geometry in the gentle dark. As we rest in that gentle dark, where the heavy staurolite crosses find their quiet equilibrium in the damp earth, we can follow the underground currents further, winding our way through ancient, echoing limestone. Deep beneath the rolling green hills of Derbyshire in England, hidden within a single highly localized cavern system, the earth is painted with a remarkably rare and quiet palette. Here, in the damp, absolute blackness, where the only sound is the infinitely slow dripping of subterranean water, veins of a highly specific fluorite known as Blue John wind through the grey rock like ribbons of trapped twilight. Millions of years ago, highly mineralized fluids seeped into the microscopic faults of the limestone. As they slowly cooled in the dark, they deposited alternating, sweeping bands of deep, velvety purple, soft, translucent blue, and warm, pale yellow. The bands are so perfectly defined, and the colours so incredibly rich, that the ancient Romans believed the stone was magically infused with the actual flavours of the rich, dark wine they drank from heavy goblets carved of it. To look at a polished piece of Blue John is to trace the rhythmic, cyclical changes of ancient, forgotten underground rivers. Each distinct band of colour is a slow, quiet season of geological time, permanently recorded in the dark. It reminds us that even in the most hidden, lightless places, the Earth is capable of weaving tapestries of profound, delicate colour, waiting patiently for millennia until the right moment gently brings them into the light. This idea of permanently recording the passage of time takes on a ghostly, ethereal quality in the quiet phenomenon of a phantom crystal. Imagine a flawlessly clear quartz crystal slowly growing in a deep, warm subterranean pocket. For thousands of years it expands, perfectly clear and entirely undisturbed. But then the geological conditions gently shift. The surrounding fluid cools, or the minerals run dry. The growth completely stops. The crystal enters a long, silent hibernation. During this immense spanning pause, a faint dusting of a different mineral, perhaps soft green chlorite or pale, milky white clay, settles gently over the crystal's pointed resting surface, coating it like a microscopic blanket of undisturbed snow. Eons later, the warm silica-rich fluids return, and the crystal simply wakes up and begins to grow again. The clear quartz continues to expand outward, enveloping that microscopic layer of dust. When you look deep into a phantom quartz, you see a faint, ghostly outline of a smaller crystal hovering perfectly inside the larger solid one. It is a transparent monument to patience, a physical, solid memory of a time when everything simply stopped. And just as the crystal accepts its period of profound, motionless rest, you can allow yourself to simply pause. You do not need to constantly grow or move forward tonight. You can just rest, completely supported, allowing the quiet layers of the night to settle softly around you, safe in the knowledge that this profound stillness is a natural, beautiful part of your own cycle. As the mind settles into this comforting stillness, the eye can sometimes play beautiful tricks, finding familiar, comforting shapes in places where they mathematically should not exist. Within the smooth, milky depths of certain pale chalcedony stones, you might find what appears to be a perfectly preserved microscopic winter forest. Delicate branching ferns, silhouetted black trees, and tiny sprawling bushes seem to be suspended entirely in the foggy white rock. This is dendritic agate. But despite their uncanny, deeply organic appearance, these are not fossils of ancient plants. They are the stunning result of a masterclass in microscopic fluid dynamics. Long after the pale agate solidified, water rich with manganese and iron slowly seeped into incredibly fine, invisible hairline fractures within the solid stone. As the water eventually evaporated, the dark minerals crystallized, creeping along the branching pathways of the microfractures, perfectly mimicking the fractal, reaching growth of a living plant. It is a stone that paints a breathtaking landscape of a forest that never actually lived, a quiet, solid illusion of the natural world. It gently reminds us that the geometry of a branching tree reaching for the sun and the geometry of creeping minerals seeking space in the dark are sung to the exact same quiet, universal rhythm. This flowing, organic movement is captured on an even more dramatic, swirling scale in a stone found in only one profoundly isolated, freezing location on the entire planet. Deep in the heart of Siberia, alongside the winding, icy waters of the Kara River, lies a massive deposit of a rock that looks entirely liquid. This is Sharwat. When ancient, hot, alkali-rich magmas pushed their way into resting limestone bedrock, the complex chemical reaction created a stone of incredibly intense, chaotic beauty. Sharwat is a mesmerizing, undulating swirl of vivid lilac, deep violet, and dark, almost black sweeping currents, interspersed with striking, floating patches of bright, pearlescent white. It does not form in neat, geometric crystals. Instead, it is a massive, fibrous intergrowth that looks soft to the touch. Looking at a polished slab of Sharwat is exactly like looking at a master painter's vision of a starry night rendered in heavy, solid stone. It is a frozen, chaotic river of purple, a permanent heavy record of intense, swirling geological forces coming to a complete, beautiful rest beneath the freezing, howling winds of the Russian taiga. From the freezing dark and endless winters of Siberia, we move to a stone that has a deeply sensitive, almost shy relationship with the bright, active light of the sun. Deep in the ancient pegmatite veins of California and the rugged mountains of Afghanistan, a stunningly clear, soft pink variety of the mineral spodumene is found in the dark. This is kunzite. It owes its delicate, ethereal pink hue to microscopic traces of manganese perfectly trapped within its clear lattice. But kunzite holds a quiet, vulnerable secret. Its beautiful colour is entirely impermanent if exposed to the harshness of prolonged daylight. The intense, energetic ultraviolet rays of the sun will slowly interact with the manganese atoms, causing the delicate pink to steadily, irreversibly fade away, leaving the crystal completely colourless and clear. Because of this beautifully fragile nature, jewellers and collectors often affectionately refer to kunzite as an evening stone. It is a gem meant to be worn and admired only in the soft, fading twilight, or in the gentle, warm glow of a quiet evening fire. It is a beautiful, physical reminder from the earth that some things are naturally meant to be shielded from the glare of the busy day, meant only for the quiet, softer and more intimate hours of the night. And now, in these quiet, softer hours, you too are completely shielded from the glare and the rush of the world outside. The bright day has faded, and the gentle, protective night has wrapped warmly around you. The heavy muscles of your legs and arms are sinking deeper into the mattress. The mind is loosening its tight grip on the day's events, and the quiet internal colours of your own dreams can begin to safely, softly reveal themselves. Sometimes the most spectacular displays of crystal geometry do not happen in the deep earth at all, but miles above our resting bodies, in the freezing, absolute silence of the upper atmosphere. On extremely cold, clear winter days, you might look up and see a breathtaking, brilliant ring of light perfectly encircling the sun, often accompanied by two bright glowing spots on either side, known beautifully as sundogs. This massive celestial optical illusion is entirely the work of trillions of microscopic, perfect ice crystals drifting in high-altitude cirrus clouds. Because water molecules naturally bond at a precise, unchanging 60-degree angle when they freeze, these tiny ice crystals form as perfectly flat, six-sided hexagonal plates. As they slowly fall and drift through the thin, freezing air, aerodynamics cause them to align horizontally, like millions of microscopic floating mirrors suspended in the sky. When the bright sunlight hits this vast, invisible sheet of descending ice, the light is perfectly bent and refracted by exactly 22 degrees. The entire sky becomes a temporary colossal lens, a massive silent symphony of floating geometry, bending the light of the sun into a crown of quiet, freezing fire before softly melting away into the atmosphere. As the tiny ice crystals slowly descend from the sky, drifting down to the earth, they gently echo the slow, silent descent of ancient creatures falling to rest in the primordial mud millions of years ago. In the deep, arid, red rock canyons of the American Southwest, a profound alchemy has taken place over the last 150 million years. When massive, thundering dinosaurs reached the end of their lives and were buried under the shifting sands of Jurassic rivers, their immense bones did not simply decay into empty dust. Instead, a silica-rich groundwater very slowly, drop by drop, filtered through the deeply buried skeletons. The organic cellular structure of the bone was entirely replaced, atom by atom, with microscopic quartz. This is agatized dinosaur bone. The miraculous part of this incredibly slow process is that the quartz perfectly, flawlessly preserved the delicate, porous structure of the original living marrow. Today, when you polish a piece of this ancient, incredibly heavy stone, you can clearly see the intricate, honeycomb-like webbing of the once-living bone, now completely filled with vibrant, swirling agate in deep, fiery reds, warm yellows, and rich, earthy browns. It is the ultimate act of geological preservation. The Earth took the heavy, resting frame of a vanished giant and meticulously turned it into a solid, eternal jewel, keeping its exact memory safe and heavy in the quiet stone forever. This incredibly careful, microscopic replacement of material is beautifully matched by a mineral that grows not by replacing, but by blanketing the Earth in a sweeping layer of tiny, sparkling points. When we think of garnets, we usually picture the deep, heavy, dark red stones tumbled by the rough ocean waves. But deep within the chromium-rich rocks of the Ural Mountains, a profoundly different, incredibly rare garnet silently forms. This is uvarovite. Unlike its massive, blocky red cousins, uvarovite almost never forms large individual crystals. Instead, it grows as a sweeping, druzy crust. Millions of microscopic, perfectly formed 12-sided crystals tightly packed together, completely coating the rough, uneven surface of their dark host rock. But the most striking feature of uvarovite is its stunning colour, a vivid, brilliant, absolute emerald green. Because the crystals are so incredibly tiny and perfectly faceted, they catch the ambient light from every conceivable angle. A piece of uvarovite looks exactly like a dense, heavy patch of quiet forest moss that has been magically frozen in time and turned into glittering green glass. It is a stunning, quiet covering, a blanket of pure, sparkling geometry resting softly and permanently on the rough, dark bedrock below. A blanket of ash from ancient rumbling volcanoes can also create the perfect, quiet environment for an entirely different kind of forest to be born and preserved in the dark. In the remote, high and sweeping desert of Virgin Valley, Nevada, the silent remnants of a 14-million-year-old forest lie deeply buried under thick layers of pale, heavy volcanic ash. Long ago, entire towering trees were swallowed by the falling ash and instantly sealed away from the degrading oxygen of the air. Over immense stretches of geological time, warm subterranean waters carrying high amounts of dissolved silica seeped downward through the buried resting wood. But instead of crystallizing into hard, opaque agate, the silica formed as a soft, fluid, microscopic gel, slowly and gently filling the empty cellular cavities left by the slowly fading wood. Over countless millennia, this soft gel completely hardened into solid, heavy opal. The result is petrified wood that completely defies expectation. The outer surface still bears the exact rough brown texture of the ancient tree bark, perfectly preserved, but the interior flashes with a spectacular fiery play of iridescent colour. Bright neon greens, deep electric blues, and flashes of vivid, warm red hover magically inside the solid woody grain. It is a piece of a 14-million-year-old tree that now burns with an eternal, cold and quiet internal flame, the ancient water and the ancient wood perfectly and peacefully united in the dark. As you envision that slow, incredibly patient transformation, that ancient resting wood slowly becoming a vessel for quiet internal light, let your own body feel that deep, comforting sense of time. There is no rush in the earth, and there is no rush here. Your breath is a slow, steady tide, rising and falling without effort. Your resting body is completely safe, anchored heavily to the earth, while your mind is completely free to drift through the colourful, endless and quiet galleries of the deep. As we allow our minds to drift further back, travelling deep into the very foundations of the earth itself, we reach a heavy, solid stone that perfectly records the most profound, quiet breath ever taken on our planet. Billions of years ago, the vast, rolling oceans of the earth were entirely green, heavily saturated with massive amounts of dissolved iron, and the thick atmosphere above held absolutely no oxygen at all. But slowly, in the quiet, shallow, sunlit waters, microscopic cyanobacteria began to softly photosynthesize, exhaling the very first microscopic bubbles of pure oxygen into the ancient sea. Instantly, This newly freed oxygen reacted with the dissolved iron in the water, causing it to quietly rust and sink down to the dark ocean floor as a heavy, deep red layer. Over hundreds of millions of years, as the microscopic bacteria bloomed in the bright summers and faded in the dark winters, alternating layers of deep red iron oxide and silver-grey silica settled in the absolute crushing quiet of the deep. This unimaginably slow rhythm created the banded iron formations, which are often beautifully compressed by the shifting tectonic plates into a heavy, swirling stone known as tiger iron. To hold a piece of this dense, incredibly heavy rock is to hold the literal physical record of the Earth's very first slow breath. It is a solid, grounding monument to the silent, microscopic life that slowly, patiently, over an ocean of time, completely transformed the atmosphere of our world, making the very air that we breathe in this quiet moment possible. And as you take your own slow, deep breath, pulling that ancient, life-giving air into your resting lungs, you're intimately connected to that profound geological memory. The gentle, steady rhythm of your breathing is a quiet echo of those billions of years of slow, patient transformation, guiding you ever downward into the absolute, enveloping stillness, where the oldest, quietest stones still wait patiently in the dark. As we rest in that gentle dark, surrounded by the heavy, silent memory of the Earth's very first breaths, we can feel the profound warmth that this ancient life eventually brought into the world. Millions of years after the oceans filled with oxygen, towering prehistoric pine forests blanketed the shifting continents. Under the heat of a forgotten sun, these massive trees wept thick, slow-moving drops of golden resin. As this sticky, luminous fluid drifted downward, it occasionally captured the incredibly delicate, fleeting artifacts of the ancient forest. A single, drifting spore, a tiny fleck of green moss, or a microscopic bubble of prehistoric air. Over millions of years, buried under immense layers of damp soil and crushing sediment, this soft resin hardened into an enduring golden glass known as amber. While it is not a traditional mineral with a geometric crystal lattice, it is a magnificent organic gem that holds its own profound, invisible energy. The ancient Greeks noticed that when a piece of smooth golden amber was gently rubbed, it awakened a quiet, invisible pull, attracting light fragments of dry leaves and feathers through static electricity. They named this warm, glowing stone electron, the very root of our modern word for electricity. To hold a piece of amber in the dark is to hold a solid, glowing ember of ancient sunlight, an eternal, warm spark perfectly preserved from a forest that vanished millions of years ago. This gentle, solid preservation of quiet warmth finds a profoundly soothing echo in a stone that was mathematically designed by the deep earth to quiet the mind. Deep within complex, ancient pegmatite veins, surrounded by heavy, dark rock, a beautifully soft and unassuming mineral called lepidolite slowly begins to grow. Lepidolite is a member of the mica family, meaning it does not form in blocky cubes or sharp points. Instead, its atomic lattice aligns into microscopic, perfectly flat sheets, stacked upon one another like the delicate, incredibly thin pages of a transparent book. You can physically peel the raw stone apart, separating it into flexible, translucent layers of pale violet, soft lilac, and shimmering silver. But the true wonder of this quietly peeling stone lies within its deep chemical signature. The soft purple hues are created by high natural concentrations of the element lithium trapped directly within the crystal structure. This is the exact same elemental foundation that modern medicine relies upon to stabilize chaotic moods and soothe the anxious, racing human mind. It is as if the earth itself grew a natural, solid apothecary in the dark, offering a heavy, tactile, and permanently calm anchor for the restless spirit. as you visualize those pale, translucent violet pages gently settling into place. One upon the other, you can allow your own active thoughts to softly peel away. There is no need to hold the pages of your day together anymore. The mind can become as smooth and as incredibly light as a single floating sheet of silver mica, gently descending toward the quiet, supportive earth. Hidden within the harsh, sharp and echoing chambers of black volcanic basalt, a completely different mineral grows that perfectly mirrors this sensation of absolute, floating softness. In the deeply buried geodes of ancient lava flows in India, tiny, miraculous formations bloom in the lightless void. To the human eye, they look exactly like soft, perfectly round cotton balls, or gentle, glowing mounds of freshly fallen snow resting inside the dark rock. This is oconite. The visual illusion is incredibly powerful, inviting you to reach out and press your fingers into its seemingly plush, downy surface. But this apparent softness is a masterful, microscopic trick of geological architecture. The fluff is actually composed of millions of incredibly thin, perfectly straight and profoundly fragile silicate glass needles, all radiating outward from a single unseen central point. It is a stunning, beautiful deception, proving that the silent earth is entirely capable of making the sharpest, most rigid glass appear as the warmest, most inviting and comforting texture imaginable. This beautiful illusion of physical touch, where rigid stone masquerades as absolute softness, takes on an even more mysterious dual nature in the deep blue blades of a mineral known as kyanite. Found deeply embedded in high-pressure metamorphic rocks, kyanite forms beautiful, elongated, striated crystals that look like long wooden splinters carved from a frozen deep blue ocean. While most crystals possess a uniform hardness, kyanite behaves according to uniquely strange anisotropic rules of physics. If you were to run a steel blade lengthwise parallel to the long striations of the crystal, the stone yields easily, scratching with the softness of simple chalk. But if you turn that exact same crystal just 90 degrees and attempt to scratch it across its width, perpendicular to its growth, it becomes incredibly hard, completely resisting the steel blade without leaving a single mark. It is a single, unbroken piece of the earth that completely changes its physical boundaries and its strength, depending entirely on the direction from which it is approached. An elegant lesson in yielding to the flow while remaining perfectly strong across the current. Just as the blue kyanite yields to one path while completely resisting another, the earth itself sometimes must completely yield to the violent, shifting, and unpredictable forces of its own moving crust. Long ago, in the deep bedrock of what is now Namibia, massive, entirely stable deposits of golden and midnight blue fibrous minerals were violently caught in the crushing, tearing movements of tectonic plates. The immense pressure shattered the solid bedrock, crushing the beautiful fibres into thousands of chaotic, jagged and fragmented pieces. For countless millennia, this broken rubble lay buried in the dark. But then slow, moving, silica-rich groundwater seeped into the wreckage. Drop by drop, the dissolved quartz acted as a permanent geological glue, gently filling the voids and completely cementing the shattered shards back together into a single solid mass. This is petersite, often called the tempest stone. When it's polished, it looks like a trapped, endlessly swirling storm of vibrant gold, heavy blue and fiery copper. The absolute chaos of its destruction is perfectly preserved, but it has been completely smoothed over, suspended in a state of eternal brilliant calm. It is a stone that beautifully teaches us that a breaking point is never the end of the story. It is simply the beginning of a profound, incredibly beautiful restoration. The fragmented, chaotic pieces of your own day can be just as beautifully gathered and restored in the quiet of this night. Let the slow, steady rhythm of your breathing act as that gentle, binding fluid, sweeping through the mind, smoothing over the sharp edges, and turning the scattered, busy energy into a single, cohesive, and deeply restful calm. Deep within the cold, toxic, heavy lead and zinc mines of the Tasmanian wilderness, where the natural sunlight has never, ever existed, the damp, grey walls suddenly burst into a display of impossible, chaotic colour that rivals the Petersite storm. Here, in the absolute dripping blackness, the mineral croquat grows in startling defiance of its bleak surroundings. It does not form heavy blocks or subtle, muted crusts. Instead, croquat blooms as incredibly fragile, hollow and brilliantly bright neon orange and deep red needles. They cluster together in chaotic, reaching bursts, looking exactly like a frozen explosion of bright fireworks, or a cluster of glowing hot embers permanently trapped inside the damp black rock. The needles are so delicate that the lightest human touch can cause them to shatter into vibrant orange dust. It is a startling, vivid reminder that the silent earth does not need an audience, nor does it require a single ray of the sun to create the most intensely vibrant, saturated and delicate bursts of colour imaginable. From these fragile, glowing needles that bloom only in the dark, we shift our perspective and our scale to a stone that has patiently endured the absolute brightest, most violently destructive fires our planet has ever known. Hidden within the ancient, sweeping, arid sands of the Jack Hills in Western Australia, geologists have meticulously sifted through the dirt to find microscopic, nearly invisible crystals of zircon. To the naked eye, these tiny grains appear completely unassuming, like simple specks of common dust. Yet they hold a staggering, incomprehensible secret. Through radiometric dating, scientists discovered that these specific tiny crystals formed 4.4 billion years ago. They are the oldest known terrestrial materials on the planet. These microscopic anchors survived the complete bubbling melting of the Earth's early crust, the crushing weight of shifting tectonic plates, and billions of years of relentless, grinding erosion. They are older than the oceans. Holding a single microscopic grain of this ancient zircon on the tip of your finger is holding the very first original draft of our planet's physical history. A tiny, completely indestructible memory that has quietly watched the entire world change around it. While the tiny zircon miraculously survived the global chaotic fires of the early Earth, other stones patiently wait to be born only after those geological fires have completely died out, and the quiet, persistent rains have begun to fall. High in the weathering zones of ancient nickel-rich serpentine rock, a uniquely vibrant stone slowly takes shape over thousands of years. This is chrysoprase. Unlike the large, clear pointed crystals of common quartz, chrysoprase is cryptocrystalline, meaning its internal crystals are so impossibly small and tightly packed that they cannot be seen even under a powerful microscope. Its creation requires profound patience. The slow, rhythmic percolation of groundwater dissolves trace amounts of green nickel from the surrounding host rock, carrying it downward into empty, waiting cracks. Layer by microscopic layer, the silica and the nickel combine to form a brilliant, glowing apple-green chalcedony. It looks exactly like solidified spring sap, a heavy, incredibly cool stone that carries the precise colour of new, vibrant organic life growing in the quiet, damp shade, proving that the slow drip of water is just as powerful an artist as the erupting volcano. This slow, persistent water that paints the heavy earth green also teaches us the profound value of simply resting exactly where we are, allowing the light to find us in its own time. In the world of precious stones, we're frequently taught that the clear, crushing weight of the diamond reigns supreme in its ability to bend light, splitting it into the fiery colours of the rainbow. But hidden within heavy zinc deposits, a beautifully fragile mineral called sphalerite effortlessly outperforms the hardest stone on Earth. A perfectly clear, honey-coloured crystal of sphalerite has an optical dispersion rate, a measure of its fire, that is over 3 times higher than that of a flawless diamond. When a single beam of light enters its polished facets, the soft stone completely erupts in an almost blinding, intensely saturated display of burning reds, bright neon greens, and deep flashing oranges. Yet, because its atomic bonds are incredibly weak, sphalerite is far too soft and fragile to ever be set into a ring or worn out into the rough, abrasive world. It is an absolute masterpiece of light that gently demands to be left perfectly still, resting safely on velvet, quietly admired from a peaceful distance. This delicate, deeply responsive relationship between a fragile stone and the invisible energy of the room is beautifully echoed in a mineral that holds a quiet, hidden reservoir of ancient rain. Growing in the very same dark volcanic cavities that protect the fluffy white stars of oconite, apophyllite forms as perfect, highly transparent four-sided pyramids that look exactly like blocks of heavy, solid, unmelting ice. But locked deeply within its clear, rigid atomic structure is a massive structural layer of pure water. It holds this ancient water so delicately and in such a precarious balance that if the stone is even slightly warmed by a heat source, it responds in a deeply fascinating physical way. As the internal temperature rises, the apophyllite begins to gently exfoliate. It physically peels apart, layer by microscopic layer, flaking away like the incredibly thin, fragile pages of an ancient dissolving book. In doing so, it quietly releases its trapped ancient water back into the atmosphere as an invisible, silent breath, softly guiding us deeper into the mist of the next undiscovered cavern. As that ancient, invisible breath of the apophyllite slowly dissipates, softening the heavy air of the deep cavern, the fading mist gently reveals a surface that completely challenges our understanding of solid rock. Deep within the dark, oxidized zones of aging copper and zinc mines, where the damp walls are typically rough, jagged and unforgiving, a miraculous mineral called aurichalcite quietly blooms in the silence. It does not form heavy blocks or sharp, rigid points. Instead, it grows in impossibly delicate, feathery tufts that look exactly like patches of the softest, palest blue-green velvet. These microscopic, needle-like crystals are so incredibly fine and densely packed that they absorb the shadows and soften the hard edges of the surrounding stone, creating a heavy, plush blanket over the barren rock. To look at a cluster of aurichalcite is to experience a profound visual illusion of absolute comfort. It is a stunning reminder that even in the most toxic, heavy and lightless environments on Earth, nature is perfectly capable of weaving a tapestry of profound softness, offering a quiet, velvety resting place in the very heart of the dark. While the aurichalcite invites the gentle, imagined touch of the hand, the deeper earth forges stones of such profound, unyielding hardness that they completely resist the passage of time, while hiding an incredible secret of shared identity. When we think of the world's most precious gemstones, we often place the deep, fiery red of the ruby and the cool, endless blue of the sapphire into entirely different categories. They seem like profound opposites, born of different forces, yet, in the strict, quiet logic of mineralogy, they are exactly the same stone. Both are simply crystalline forms of aluminum oxide, a heavy, incredibly hard and perfectly clear mineral known as corundum. In its purest state, corundum is as transparent as a drop of water, but during the immense heat and pressure of its formation deep within the Earth's crust, if a microscopic whisper of chromium enters the clear lattice, the stone permanently blushes into the deep red of a ruby. If instead, a faint breath of iron and titanium washes into the growing crystal, it settles into the serene, oceanic blue of a sapphire. They are siblings, identical in structure, weight, and strength, simply wearing different colours borrowed from the trace elements of the earth. It is a beautiful philosophical anchor. Beneath the vivid, contrasting colours of the surface, there is a profound, unyielding unity, a shared foundation that connects the fire of the red to the calm of the blue. This profound, subterranean alchemy of trace elements is not confined to the deep, high-pressure mantle. It also works its quiet magic closer to the surface, beneath the shifting, arid sands of the world's most unforgiving deserts. In the sweeping, sun-baked landscapes of Namibia, where the air is completely devoid of moisture and the red earth is parched and cracked, the earth hides a masterful illusion of deep, refreshing water. Here, in the oxidized zones of copper deposits, the mineral dioptase forms in startling, brilliant clusters, while the landscape above is a harsh, dry expanse of brown and ochre. These crystals grow in an intensely saturated, mesmerizing emerald green that leans deeply into oceanic blue. When you look into a flawless, perfectly faceted crystal of dioptase, the depth of its color is so intense and its transparency so clear that it looks exactly like a heavy, perfectly still pool of cool water miraculously trapped inside the dry rock. It is a geological oasis, a solid, heavy mirage born from the absolute absence of water, proving that the Earth always carries exactly what the landscape lacks, holding it safely in reserve beneath the surface. Just as the Earth holds that cool, deep emerald water in the dry stone, your mind holds a vast, quiet reservoir of peace, even after the longest and most demanding day. The surface may feel busy, dry, or weathered by the waking hours, but deep beneath that active layer, there is a still, heavy pool of absolute calm. You can simply sink into it now, letting the cool weight of relaxation wash over the heavy muscles of your face, your neck, and your shoulders. This deep, enduring thirst of the desert is occasionally beautifully quenched by the rare and fleeting arrival of sudden heavy rain. When these rare storms break over the arid, copper-rich mountains of the American Southwest, or the ancient, echoing valleys of Iran, the water does not simply evaporate. It seeps deeply into the cracks of the parched earth, beginning a slow, patient descent through the rock. As the rainwater slowly percolates downward over thousands of years, it quietly dissolves tiny amounts of copper, aluminum, and phosphorus from the surrounding stone. When the water finally comes to a rest in the deep, narrow seams of the bedrock, it slowly evaporates, leaving these elements behind to permanently bond together. The result is an opaque, heavy stone of the most brilliant, vibrant sky blue, often intricately webbed with dark, winding veins of the original host rock. This is turquoise. It is not a crystal that grew in a fiery magma chamber. It is the literal solid memory of an ancient rainstorm. The water washed the colour of the bright open sky down into the absolute dark of the earth, permanently painting the subterranean walls with the soothing, vibrant blue of a clear, quiet day. Water is the great patient artist of the deep world, capable of capturing the fleeting colours of the sky, and equally capable of preserving the heavy, solid memory of ancient towering life that has long since passed away. Millions of years ago, in prehistoric sweeping forests, massive tree branches would occasionally fall into the soft, deep mud of volcanic ash beds. Over time, the organic wood completely rotted away, disappearing entirely into the earth. But the heavy, compressed mud held its shape perfectly, creating a hollow, subterranean mould of the exact branch that once rested there. Thousands of years later, slow-moving groundwater, rich with dissolved silica, found these empty, hidden tunnels. Drop by microscopic drop, the water filled the dark voids with incredibly fine layers of chalcedony. Today, when these formations are pulled from the earth, they are known as agate limb casts. The outside of the stone still perfectly carries the exact, rough, deeply grooved texture of the ancient tree bark, while the inside is entirely composed of solid, swirling, translucent agate. The earth patiently built a crystalline vessel perfectly shaped by the memory of a vanished tree, filling an empty space with heavy, solid beauty. This gentle, flowing rhythm of the dropping water can also completely soften the harsh, rigid angles and the sharp geometry of the subterranean world, replacing them with shapes that feel profoundly soothing to the human eye. Deep within the oxidized zones of zinc ore, where heavy metallic rocks typically shatter into sharp, jagged fragments, a mineral called smithsonite chooses a completely different, beautifully relaxed path. It forms in massive, sweeping structures known as botryoidal habits, a term derived from the Greek word for a cluster of grapes. But looking at a heavy piece of smithsonite is less like looking at fruit, and more like looking at a pool of soft melted wax that has been instantaneously frozen in time. It forms in smooth, heavy overlapping bubbles and gentle rolling hills of solid stone. Because of the varying trace elements in the water that formed it, these soft, bubbly shapes are often painted in incredibly calming pastel hues: pale, milky pinks, soft lavenders, and gentle seafoam greens. It is the Earth's way of creating visual comfort, turning heavy, dense metal ores into smooth, deeply tactile shapes that invite the mind to simply glide over their unhurried, rounded surfaces. You do not need to hold a rigid shape tonight. You can allow your own thoughts to become just as soft, just as beautifully formless as those smooth, pastel curves of stone. Let the sharp edges of your day gently melt away, leaving only a slow, rolling, continuous feeling of deep, comfortable gravity pulling you down into the mattress. From these soft, bubbling pastel curves, the Earth occasionally decides to pull the minerals into incredibly tight, perfectly straight lines, creating a stone that acts as a natural, quiet conductor of light. Deep within the massive ancient sedimentary beds formed by evaporating seas, the mineral gypsum sometimes crystallizes into a variety known as satin spar. Unlike the massive clear panes of window-like selenite, satin spar grows in dense, heavy blocks of incredibly fine, tightly packed, perfectly parallel fibrous crystals. These microscopic threads of stone act exactly like natural fiber optic cables. When a soft light strikes the end of a block of satin spar, the light travels perfectly down the length of the fibers, creating a brilliant glowing band of pure pearlescent white light that seems to hover just below the surface. Because of its incredibly smooth, silky texture and its ability to trap and transmit a soft, glowing light, it is frequently carved into heavy, perfectly round spheres that look exactly like solid, palm-sized moons. To hold a piece of glowing satin spar in the dark is to hold a captured beam of moonlight, a heavy, silky wand of peace that smoothly guides the light from one end of the darkness to the other. This unique ability to capture and transmit ambient light takes on an incredibly protective, warming role in a completely different, highly transparent stone that forms in flat, flexible pages. Deep in the ancient, freezing landscapes of what is now Russia, long before the invention of modern tempered glass, people sought a way to bring the warmth and light of the fire into their homes without inviting the biting, lethal cold of the winter wind. They found their answer in massive, buried crystals of muscovite mica. Because of its perfect basal cleavage, muscovite can be effortlessly peeled into massive, completely transparent sheets that are incredibly thin, beautifully flexible, and most importantly, profoundly resistant to immense heat. The people would carefully peel these sheets of stone and set them into the heavy iron doors of their winter stoves. This ancient window pane, affectionately known as isinglass, allowed the deep orange glow of the burning embers to spill safely into the dark, freezing rooms. It is a beautiful thought. A transparent shield made of solid earth, pulled from the freezing ground, used specifically to protect human warmth and let the calming, flickering light of the fire dance safely in the deep winter night. While the heavy, flexible sheets of mica protect us from the fire, other stones actively interact with the air we breathe, using it to slowly, patiently, and completely transform their appearance into something deeply magical. Deep within the heavy, lightless veins of copper mines, a dense metallic mineral called chalcopyrite is born. When it is first pulled from the protective, crushing weight of the earth, it looks like a simple, bright, brassy yellow rock, often mistaken for common fool's gold. But chalcopyrite is profoundly sensitive to the atmosphere. As it simply rests in the open air, it begins to breathe in the oxygen and the faint moisture of the room. Over months and years, this slow, silent breath causes the surface of the brassy stone to naturally oxidize and completely tarnish. But it does not tarnish into a dull, flat grey. Instead, it blooms into a breathtaking, iridescent slick of deep metallic purples, vibrant electric blues, rich magentas, and bright, fiery golds. Known beautifully as peacock ore, it is a stone that requires absolutely no polishing or cutting to achieve its brilliance. It literally becomes more beautiful, more vibrant, and more colourful simply by resting quietly in the air and allowing the slow, patient passage of time to change its surface. There is no effort required to find this beauty. You only need to rest, to breathe, and to allow the quiet, natural transformations of the night to slowly wash over you. Every steady breath you take is bringing you deeper into your own quiet brilliance, shedding the brassy noise of the day and settling into the rich, deep, comfortable colours of absolute rest. This slow, quiet transformation on the surface of the stone is just a faint, fleeting echo of the profound, total transformations that can occur deep within the very heart of the crystal lattice itself, proving that the Earth is the ultimate master of graceful aging. Millions of years ago, iron and sulfur atoms locked together in the dark to form flawless, perfectly rigid golden cubes of pyrite. For eons they rested in the bedrock. But as the landscape above slowly shifted and oxygen-rich water began to seep down into the deep rock, a microscopic, incredibly patient exchange began. Atom by single atom, the sulfur within the golden cube was slowly dissolved and washed away by the water, and in its exact place, oxygen atoms seamlessly bonded with the remaining iron. The internal chemistry of the entire stone completely changed, shifting from iron sulfide to iron oxide, becoming a mineral known as limonite. Yet, miraculously, during this total internal metamorphosis, the stone stubbornly perfectly retained its original outer shape. It remained a flawless, sharp-edged cube. This geological miracle is known as a pseudomorph, a false form. It is a dark, heavy, earthy brown cube of limonite that perfectly holds the memory of the golden pyrite it once was. It is a profound, comforting lesson etched into solid rock. Our core essence can entirely change, soften, and evolve over time, while we still gracefully maintain our familiar, comforting shape to the world, resting safely in the knowledge that true transformation does not require us to break. As we rest safely in the knowledge that true transformation does not require us to break, we might begin to notice an even more profound, intimate connection between the deep, quiet earth and our own resting bodies. We often think of the mineral kingdom as something entirely separate from the biological world, a cold, hard landscape that exists outside of our warm, breathing lives. But there is a beautiful, deeply grounding stone called apatite that completely erases this imagined boundary. In the earth, apatite forms stunning hexagonal crystals that range from deep, oceanic blues to bright, vibrant forest greens. Yet, on a microscopic molecular level, a highly specific variation of this exact same mineral family is the fundamental building block of the human skeleton. The calcium phosphate lattice that gives apatite its strength in the deep rock is the very same geometric architecture that makes up the heavy, protective enamel of your teeth and the quiet, enduring bones of your body. To hold a piece of raw apatite is to hold a mirror to your own internal structure. The silent, supportive framework of the earth is intimately, beautifully woven into the very framework of your own resting frame. You're quite literally made of the same quiet, patient stone that sleeps in the deep underground caverns, sharing a profound, unyielding resonance with the quiet planet beneath you. This intimate reflection between the inner self and the outer world takes on a breathtaking optical magic when we look deep into the smooth, domed surface of a dark blue sapphire. While some sapphires are prized for their perfect, flawless clarity, others hold a beautiful hidden network of microscopic inclusions that create a phenomenon of pure floating light. Deep within the cooling crust as the corundum crystal slowly formed, incredibly fine, needle-like crystals of the titanium mineral rutile grew perfectly trapped inside it. Because of the strict geometric laws of the crystal lattice, these microscopic golden threads, known affectionately as silk, are forced to intersect at exact 60-degree angles, building a microscopic three-dimensional web in the dark. When a lapidary cuts this stone into a smooth, rounded dome, the ambient light catches this internal web of silk, creating a brilliant, glowing, six-rayed star that appears to hover magically just above the deep blue surface of the stone. This is asterism. As you slowly turn the heavy stone in your hand, the star glides smoothly across the surface, always responding to the exact angle of your observation. It is a captured terrestrial star that does not belong to the night sky, but waits patiently in the dark rock to be awakened by a single soft beam of light. And just as that quiet, floating star responds to the gentlest shift in the light, your own mind is responding to the soft, steady rhythm of your breathing. The heavy thoughts of the day are losing their sharp edges, floating weightlessly across the smooth, calm surface of your awareness. The eyes can relax behind closed lids, watching the soft, imaginary colours gently shift and fade in the comfortable dark. This sensation of absolute floating weightlessness is perfectly mirrored by a stone born from the most intense, explosive pressures the Earth can generate. When a highly pressurized, gas-rich volcano erupts, the superheated liquid magma is blasted high into the freezing air. The sudden, violent drop in atmospheric pressure causes the dissolved gases to instantly expand, frothing the liquid rock exactly like a shaken, opened bottle of sparkling water. In a fraction of a second, the freezing air drops the temperature, instantaneously freezing this bubbling, chaotic froth into a solid glass. This is pumice. It is a volcanic stone so completely riddled with millions of microscopic trapped air bubbles that its physical density is actually less than that of liquid water. If you take this rough, pale grey stone and toss it gently into a heavy, deep lake, it will not sink. It will bob and float effortlessly on the surface, a solid piece of the deep, heavy earth suspended weightlessly on the gentle, rolling tide. It is a beautiful paradox, a stone born of violent, crushing pressure and intense, searing heat that ultimately finds its lasting existence as a symbol of absolute buoyancy, peacefully floating along the quiet currents of the world. As the pumice drifts slowly across the cool, blue waters of the ocean, it leads us to a stone that captures the shifting, deepest depths of that watery blue, found in only one incredibly isolated location on the entire planet. At the very foothills of Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania, resting deep within the complex metamorphic rock, lies tanzanite. This exquisite variety of the mineral zoisite possesses an optical property that requires you to slow down and observe it with careful, patient attention. It is strongly pleochroic, meaning its internal crystal lattice absorbs light in a highly complex asymmetrical way. When you hold a raw tanzanite crystal up to the soft light and look down its length, it appears as a deep, rich, velvety sapphire blue. But if you gently rotate the stone just a few degrees and look through its side, that blue entirely vanishes, seamlessly replaced by a vibrant, glowing violet. Turn it one final time along its third crystallographic axis, and the stone flashes with a warm, deep burgundy red. It is a single, unbroken stone that holds three entirely different, distinct identities, proving that the true colour of the world often depends entirely on the quiet, patient angle from which you choose to observe it. This beautiful, internal complexity shifts from changing colours to capturing physical golden fireworks inside a stone found deep in the rugged, quiet expanse of the Ural Mountains in Russia. Here, the Earth produces a rare, vivid green variety of garnet known as demantoid. While its name translates to diamond-like because of its incredibly high optical dispersion, its true magic lies in what the gem world usually considers a flaw. Trapped perfectly within the bright emerald green crystal are microscopic, radiating threads of a different mineral called chrysotile. These golden yellow threads curve outward from a central dark chromite crystal, fanning out in delicate sweeping arcs. Geologists and gemologists beautifully refer to these as horsetail inclusions. They look exactly like a captured golden comet frozen in mid-flight, or a microscopic burst of slow-motion fireworks suspended forever in a sea of green glass. The absolute perfection of the green garnet is beautifully interrupted by this internal, chaotic sweep of golden threads, transforming a simple, clear stone into a complex, deeply characterful masterpiece, proving that sometimes our most visible, unhidden flaws are the exact things that make us exceptionally beautiful. You can let go of the need for any perfect, rigid structure tonight. Your own wandering thoughts, those quiet, drifting ideas that cross your mind as you rest, are just like those golden threads, natural, beautifully complex, and completely safe to observe without needing to change them. Let them fan out, let them drift, and let them slowly fade into the soft, supporting green of the deep quiet. While the horsetail inclusion curves and bends organically within the stone, other minerals hold a deeply hidden, rigid mathematical perfection that only reveals itself when the stone is physically broken apart. The colourful, transparent mineral fluorite, which glows so beautifully under invisible light, possesses a structural secret born from the exact, unyielding geometry of its atomic bonds. The connections between the calcium and fluorine atoms are not equally strong in all directions. There are 4 distinct planes within the internal lattice where the bonds are incredibly weak. If a heavy piece of rough fluorite is dropped, or if pressure is applied to it, it does not shatter into random, jagged, chaotic shards. Instead, the force travels precisely along those invisible planes of weakness, and the stone cleaves perfectly. The rough, shapeless mass breaks away to reveal a flawless, smooth-faced, 8-sided octahedron. 2 perfect 4-sided pyramids seamlessly joined at their square bases. It is a stunning realization that even in moments of structural failure, even in the chaotic act of breaking apart, the Earth falls back onto a foundation of absolute hidden mathematical harmony. This concept of a hidden massive foundation takes us to the deepest, most inaccessible, and most abundant secret our planet holds. When we think of the most common minerals on Earth, we look at the quartz sand on our beaches or the feldspar in the granite mountains, but they are merely a dusting on the surface. If you were to travel 400 miles straight down, plunging through the thin crust and deep into the crushing lightless heat of the lower mantle, you would find an ocean of a mineral called bridgmanite. Due to the unimaginably immense pressure of the overlying planet, the magnesium, iron, and silicate atoms are crushed into an incredibly dense, tightly packed perovskite structure. Bridgmanite is so vast that it makes up nearly 40% of the entire volume of our planet. It is the undisputed, most abundant mineral on Earth, yet no human being has ever seen it resting naturally in the ground. Because it requires such extreme pressure to exist, if it is brought up toward the surface, it instantly destabilizes and reverts into other less dense minerals. It is a quiet, massive, and entirely untouchable pillar of support, silently bearing the weight of the entire world, asking for no light, no recognition, and no audience in the absolute dark. And as you lie safely on the surface of this massive, supportive world, you can borrow the quiet strength of that deep foundation. You are completely supported from below. The heavy, invisible layers of the earth are holding you up, allowing your physical body to entirely let go of its own weight, sinking comfortably and securely into the absolute stillness of the night. From the massive, untouchable density of the deep mantle, we rise back toward the surface, finding an oxidized, weathered zone where a mineral forms with an architecture so delicate and fragile, it seems almost impossible it could survive in heavy rock. In the deep, silent shafts of old lead and zinc mines, growing out of the dark, iron-stained walls, are clusters of a mineral named wolfenite. Unlike the heavy, blocky cubes of pyrite, wolfenite crystallizes in flat, razor-thin, perfectly square plates. They are often a bright, translucent, glowing orange or a warm, honey yellow. They protrude from the dark rock exactly like tiny, paper-thin panes of bright stained glass. The physical contrast is striking. The surrounding host rock is heavy, grey, dense and unforgiving, yet it serves as the perfect, quiet nursery for these incredibly fragile, geometric windows of light. The plates are so thin that light passes through them effortlessly, casting a warm orange glow in the dark, a delicate, weightless burst of geometric joy thriving in the heavy, industrial silence of the forgotten earth. This bright, transparent orange glass leads us softly into the grounded, earthy pinks of a stone that beautifully accepts the heavy scars of its environment. While kunzite fades in the sun and rose quartz remains a soft, pale, translucent blush, a heavy manganese silicate known as rhodonite wears its history directly on its surface. Rhodonite forms in a deep, rich, opaque rose pink. But as the raw stone sits in the earth, slowly exposed to the elements and shifting subterranean waters, the manganese near its surface begins to slowly oxidize. This quiet chemical weathering creates striking deep black veins of manganese oxide that wind their way through the solid pink stone. They look exactly like dark creeping rivers or the silhouetted branching limbs of winter trees painted against a pink dawn sky. The stone does not fight the oxidation, it incorporates it. In the world of lapidary arts, rhodonite is not prized despite these dark black scars, but precisely because of them. The dark, winding veins provide a heavy, grounded contrast to the soft pink, creating a mature, balanced beauty that proves true character is often carved by the quiet, slow weathering of time. This quiet, earthy weathering on the surface of our planet is occasionally interrupted by the sudden, magnificent arrival of material that does not belong to our world at all. Over a century ago, in the vast arid expanse of the Arizona desert, a chemist named Henry Moissan was carefully examining rock fragments from the massive Canyon Diablo meteorite crater. Buried within the heavy, shattered, extraterrestrial iron, he found microscopic, incredibly brilliant transparent crystals. At first glance, because of their intense sparkle and profound hardness, they were mistaken for diamonds. But careful analysis revealed they were entirely different. They were natural silicon carbide, a mineral that would eventually be named moissanite in his honor. Natural moissanite is so impossibly rare on Earth that it is almost never found in terrestrial rocks. Its true home is in the cold, absolute vacuum of space. These tiny, sparkling grains were forged billions of years ago in the immense, fiery atmospheres of ancient dying stars, long before our own sun even existed. They floated through the freezing cosmic dark for eons, eventually locking into a wandering meteorite, surviving a fiery atmospheric plunge and resting quietly in the desert dust. To hold a tiny grain of natural moissanite is to hold a literal physical piece of stardust, a glittering cosmic memory that has travelled across the unimaginable depths of the universe simply to rest in the quiet, supportive embrace of the sleeping Earth. As we consider that tiny, glittering piece of moissanite stardust, resting quietly in the Arizona desert after its unimaginable journey across the universe, we can find a beautiful counterpoint in a stone that was born entirely in the deep, lightless antiquity of our own world. In the remote, freezing bedrock of Karelia, Russia, lies a massive deposit of an incredibly ancient, pitch-black rock known as shungite. Formed over 2 billion years ago, long before the first primitive plants even reached toward the sun, shungite is composed almost entirely of pure, deep carbon. But its true hidden miracle is found at the microscopic level. Within this heavy, lightless rock, the carbon atoms naturally arrange themselves into incredibly complex, hollow, spherical structures, perfectly resembling microscopic soccer balls or architectural geodesic domes. These rare formations are known as fullerenes. They act as tiny, indestructible cages, capable of safely trapping other wandering atoms and holding them perfectly secure within their empty centers. To hold a piece of raw shungite is to hold a physical piece of the primordial void, a deeply grounding, absolute blackness that does not reflect the light, but quietly and safely absorbs the chaotic energy of the environment into its ancient hollow architecture. This deep, absorbing blackness gracefully gives way to a stone that looks as though it has been woven from pure silvery light and soft green feathers. In the heavily forested, echoing wilderness of eastern Siberia, a unique variety of the mineral clinochlore is carefully pulled from the cold earth. Because of its breathtaking internal structure, it is beautifully named seraphinite. The stone is a rich, deep forest green, but sweeping across its surface are brilliant, chatoyant fibers of shimmering metallic silver. These silver inclusions branch and fan outward in delicate, overlapping arcs that look exactly like the soft, downy feathers of a suspended angel's wing, forever frozen in the solid rock. As you slowly turn the heavy stone, the silver fibers catch the light, causing the wings to ripple and shift, creating a mesmerizing optical illusion of gentle, sweeping flight deep within the heavy, unmoving stone. It is a stunning visual paradox, blending the heavy, rooting energy of the deep green earth with the soaring, weightless and ethereal geometry of the sky. From the freezing, isolated forests of Siberia, we journey back through time to the warm, sun-baked sands of ancient Mesopotamia, where a completely different kind of stone was valued for a deeply practical, yet beautifully symbolic physical property. Carnelian is a variety of chalcedony that blooms in rich, translucent shades of warm, glowing orange and deep sunset red. Because its microscopic crystal structure is so incredibly dense, tight, and flawlessly smooth, it possesses a remarkable resistance. Thousands of years ago, ancient kings and scribes utilized carnelian to carve their intricate personal signet rings. They discovered that when they pressed the stone into pools of boiling, sticky, melted wax to seal a letter, the heavy, hot wax would never, ever stick to the carnelian. The stone would pull away flawlessly clean every single time, leaving a perfect impression behind without taking any of the sticky, chaotic mess of the wax with it. It is a glowing, warm stone that interacts intimately with the world, yet remains perfectly untouched and entirely unburdened by the heat and the clinging weight of its surroundings. The resting mind can beautifully mirror the smooth, unbothered nature of that ancient carnelian. As the hot, sticky worries of the day attempt to cling to your awareness, you can simply let them slide effortlessly away. There is no need for them to stick. You are perfectly smooth, perfectly centered, and allowed to simply leave a quiet impression on the night without carrying any of the heavy residue of the waking hours into your rest. This smooth, unbothered tranquility finds its perfect color in the vibrant, sweeping currents of a feldspar mineral called amazonite. Despite its name, this bright, striking stone is not found in the Amazon River, but its colour perfectly evokes the deep, clear, tropical waters of an untouched jungle canopy. Amazonite blooms in intense, soothing shades of teal, bright turquoise, and pale, milky cyan. Yet, the geological recipe for this airy, watery colour is surprisingly heavy. For centuries, the exact cause of amazonite's bright teal hue was a complete mystery to geologists. Only recently did advanced spectroscopy reveal that this vibrant tropical colour is the direct result of incredibly heavy, trace amounts of lead interacting directly with microscopic water molecules trapped deep within the rigid crystal lattice. The Earth took one of the heaviest, dullest, and most toxic elements in existence, folded it quietly into the cooling rock with a drop of water, and transformed it into a solid manifestation of absolute, bright, and sweeping tranquility. Just as the Amazonite hides a heavy secret behind its vibrant colour, one of the most beloved and gentle stones on the planet completely conceals the true source of its soft, calming blush. Rose quartz is universally recognised for its pale, translucent, and deeply soothing pink hue. It looks like a heavy piece of carved twilight or a drop of frozen pink morning mist. For generations, mineralogists believed the colour was a simple, chemical impurity acting on the quartz itself, perhaps a touch of manganese or titanium. But under the unimaginably powerful lenses of modern electron microscopes, the truth was finally revealed. The quartz itself is not pink at all. It is perfectly, flawlessly clear. The soft colour comes from an impossibly dense microscopic web of an entirely different mineral, a fibrous borosilicate called dumortierite, which grows in unimaginably fine pink threads. These threads are suspended by the millions within the clear silica, completely invisible to the naked eye. The solid quartz simply acts as a heavy protective glass house, cradling a delicate suspended fog of pink fibres, keeping them perfectly safe and still for millions of years. While the rose quartz hides its delicate internal fog, another stone has quietly, peacefully hidden its entire identity from the greatest monarchs in human history, resting in plain sight. At the very front of the British imperial state crown sits a massive, blood-red, irregularly polished gemstone known for centuries as the Black Prince's ruby. It was worn in battle, fiercely protected, and revered as one of the most magnificent rubies on the face of the planet. But it is not a ruby at all. It is a red spinel. Spinel is a completely different, incredibly beautiful, and highly durable mineral that naturally forms in the exact same deep, fiery reds as the corundum ruby. Because it looks so perfectly identical to the naked eye, the spinel rested quietly in the centre of the royal crown, absolutely flawless and profoundly beautiful, completely unbothered by the fact that the entire world was calling it by the wrong name. It is a magnificent physical lesson in quiet, independent presence. The stone does not require the correct label to be brilliant. It simply shines exactly as it is, holding its deep red fire in the centre of history, beautifully indifferent to the expectations of the surface world. The rigid expectations and the unyielding rules of the waking world continue to gently bend and soften when we look deep into the echoing hydrothermal veins of the earth, where a mineral named stibnite grows in the dark. At first glance, a cluster of stibnite looks incredibly intimidating and intensely rigid. It forms long, sweeping metallic silver crystals that look exactly like a cluster of sharp, heavy steel swords reaching out from the rock. Visually, it projects an aura of absolute impenetrable hardness. Yet, this is a beautiful visual deception. Stibnite is an antimony sulfide, and its internal atomic bonds are so profoundly weak that it is one of the softest crystalline structures on the planet. The slender, metallic swords are so incredibly fragile and pliant that if you were to gently press your thumb against the side of a long crystal, the simple warmth of your skin and the light pressure of your hand would cause the solid metal to permanently softly bend. It is a heavy metallic rock that yields like warm wax, a beautiful illusion of unyielding armour that ultimately surrenders to the softest, quietest touch. Your own physical body can experience this beautiful, effortless yielding right now. The rigid posture you had to hold throughout the busy day can simply melt away. The heavy muscles of your back and your shoulders can soften, bending perfectly to the shape of the surface beneath you, trading the hard armour of the day for the soft, flexible, and completely safe embrace of the night. This soft, melting feeling takes on a beautifully gentle physical form in a stone that specifically acts as a sanctuary for other, more fragile minerals in the deep earth. In the quiet cavities of ancient cooling basalt, a pale, glowing green mineral called prehnite slowly begins to bloom. Much like smithsonite, it does not form sharp, pointed crystals. Instead, it grows in soft botryoidal clusters that look exactly like gentle, rolling green hills or a canopy of smooth, overlapping leaves. Prehnite is often referred to by geologists and collectors as the ultimate protective stone, because as it grows, its soft, rolling green masses will frequently envelop and completely encase other, highly delicate crystals, like the sharp, dark needles of epidote. It surrounds them in a heavy, translucent, pale green blanket, buffering them from the shifting pressures of the deep crust. It is the Earth's natural solid sanctuary, a soft green fortress that carefully wraps itself around the fragile architecture of the subterranean world, ensuring that nothing is broken in the dark. Within this quiet green sanctuary, we can look upward and find a very different kind of star than the cosmic moissanite that fell to the desert. In the heavy, shadowed, and ancient pine forests of northern Idaho, buried beneath the deep, damp soil, the Earth grows a remarkably heavy, dark variation of the garnet family. While most garnets are a clear, fiery red, the star garnet is a deep, opaque, velvety plum, leaning heavily toward a rich, dark burgundy. Deep within its dense, heavy structure, microscopic, perfectly aligned needles of rutile quietly wait for the light. When this heavy, dark stone is carefully unearthed and polished into a smooth, perfectly round dome, an incredible optical miracle occurs. A brilliant, sharp, 4-rayed or 6-rayed star of pure floating light instantly appears on the deep purple surface. Because of the exact geographic and geological conditions required to form them, these perfectly aligned star garnets are found almost nowhere else on the planet, except for a few isolated valleys in India. To hold a polished star garnet is to hold a heavy terrestrial sky, a deep, dark pocket of the Earth that managed to capture and permanently hold its own quiet, personal constellation. And finally, as those terrestrial stars shine quietly in the palm of the hand, the Earth provides a final, heavy, grounding weight to hold us firmly and comfortably in place. In the sweeping, painted, arid deserts of the American Southwest, massive cliffs of ancient red Navajo sandstone have stood against the wind for millions of years. Buried deep within these towering red walls are naturally occurring, perfectly spherical iron oxide concretions. They formed underground eons ago, when iron minerals precipitated around a microscopic core of sand, building a heavy, dark, solid shell, layer by patient layer. Over thousands of years, as the relentless desert winds slowly and quietly erode the softer red sandstone cliffs away, these incredibly dense, perfectly round iron spheres are gently freed from the rock. They simply drop out of the cliff face and fall softly onto the warm, blowing sand below. Known in local folklore as Moki marbles, they rest by the thousands on the desert floor. They look exactly like heavy, perfectly smooth, dark chocolate truffles or ancient grounded anchors. They offer a profound, deeply satisfying tactile weight. They are the Earth's perfectly shaped, heavy, grounding stones, waiting patiently in the sun, offering a solid, unmoving centre of gravity in a landscape defined by endless, shifting wind. As those perfect heavy iron spheres rest patiently in the sweeping desert wind, acting as solid anchors against the shifting sands, we can follow that deep, grounding energy far away from the bright sun, plunging downward into the dark, compressed layers of the Earth. Deep within the subterranean coal mines of Illinois, the Earth plays a breathtaking trick with space, pressure, and geometry. We have seen how the mineral pyrite naturally desires to grow into perfect, sharp-edged golden cubes when it has the total freedom of an empty open cavity. But millions of years ago, in the dark, anoxic mud of ancient decaying swamps, The growing pyrite was trapped between immensely heavy layers of dark, flat, compressed shale. With the crushing, unimaginable weight of the Earth pressing down from above, the mineral simply could not build its cubic towers. Instead, it was forced to adapt, growing entirely horizontally. It radiated outward from a single, central point, creeping patiently along the microscopic flat spaces between the layers of sedimentary rock, creating a perfectly flat, brilliantly golden disk. These are known affectionately as pyrite suns or miners' dollars. When the miners carefully split the heavy dark grey rock, these radiant, perfectly circular golden sunbursts are revealed in the absolute pitch black of the mine. It is a profound, silent lesson in adaptation. When the Earth is denied the space to reach upward, it simply spreads its golden light outward, finding a new, equally beautiful geometry within the heavy constraints of its environment. This ancient, compressed environment of the deep coal seams hides another beautiful treasure, one that trades the cold, metallic flash of golden pyrite for a deep, velvety, and surprisingly warm embrace. Millions of years ago, massive branches of prehistoric Araucaria trees, the towering ancestors of the modern monkey puzzle tree, were washed out to sea during immense ancient storms. They became heavy, waterlogged driftwood, floating for months before eventually sinking into the deep, oxygen-poor mud of the quiet ocean floor. Over vast geological epochs, the immense pressure of the ocean above, combined with the steadily accumulating sediment, slowly crushed and fossilized the wood, turning it into a dense, pure black mineraloid known as jet. Because jet is entirely organic in its origin, born from living wood rather than cold silica or metal, it possesses a highly unique thermal property. If you pick up a polished piece of deep black jet, it does not feel icy cold like a common quartz crystal. It almost immediately absorbs and perfectly reflects the warmth of your own skin, feeling surprisingly soft and comforting to the touch. It is a piece of the deep black earth that still quietly remembers the warm, sunlit forest from which it fell millions of years ago, offering a gentle, radiant heat in the dark. And as you imagine the comforting, surprising warmth of that smooth black stone resting in the palm of your hand, you might notice a similar, spreading warmth settling into your own resting body. The heavy limbs sink just a little deeper, completely supported by the mattress beneath you. The busy, racing thoughts of the day begin to feel distant, fading like ancient, quiet echoes, while your mind simply drifts, much like that ancient wood floating slowly on a calm, quiet sea. That quiet, ancient sea is also the birthplace of the only gemstone in the world, created by a living creature, born entirely from a profound, gentle act of self-soothing. Deep beneath the gentle rolling waves, an oyster rests in the dark. Occasionally a tiny microscopic irritant, perhaps a wandering grain of sand or a sharp fragment of a broken shell, will find its way inside the soft, vulnerable space of the mollusk. Unable to remove the trespasser, the oyster responds not with resistance, but with a beautiful, continuous embrace. It slowly begins to secrete an incredibly smooth, iridescent substance called nacre, composed of alternating microscopic layers of the crystalline mineral aragonite and soft, organic proteins. Day after day, year after patient year, it paints thousands of these impossibly thin, overlapping crystal layers completely around the irritant. The light entering the pearl bounces through this dense microscopic maze of aragonite plates, creating a soft, glowing, pearlescent luster. It is an absolute masterpiece of natural defense. The creature transforms a sharp, uncomfortable disruption into a perfectly smooth, glowing sphere, quietly teaching us that the most beautiful, enduring things in our lives are often built by slowly, patiently wrapping our smallest irritations in layers of absolute grace. This quiet creation of beauty in the dark mud is not limited to the ocean floor. More than 250 million years ago, in the deep ancient seabed that would eventually be pushed upward to become the towering misty mountains of southern China, a spectacular floral geometry bloomed in the pitch-black limestone. Buried in the thick calcareous mud, highly concentrated pockets of strontium and sulfate quietly merged in the dark. Slowly, crystals of the heavy mineral celestite began to grow outward from a single central core. They formed long, sweeping, gently curved white petals of solid stone, reaching through the dark grey limestone. Today, when these heavy, dark rocks are unearthed and carefully polished smooth, they reveal a breathtaking, naturally occurring masterpiece known as the chrysanthemum stone. The visual contrast is profound and instantly calming. The host rock is a dense, heavy, absolute black, yet floating perfectly within it is a brilliant white crystalline flower that looks exactly as though it was painted by a master calligrapher with a single stroke of a brush. It is a permanent, immortal bloom, an eternal flower that never requires the bright sun, living forever in the quiet, heavy dark. From the stark, contrasting white petals of the underground flower, we drift smoothly into a stone that captures the dappled, moving light of a lush, sunlit canopy. Deep within the earth, as clear quartz slowly crystallizes from hot, silica-rich hydrothermal fluids, it sometimes encounters a floating cloud of microscopic, glittering impurities. In the case of aventurine, the growing, solidifying quartz seamlessly engulfs millions of tiny, flat, plate-like crystals of a bright green mica called fuchsite. Because these microscopic green mirrors are suspended evenly throughout the solid, translucent quartz, they catch the entering light and bounce it back in a spectacular, glittering phenomenon known as aventurescence. When you gently turn a polished piece of green aventurine in the soft light, the entire internal depth of the stone seems to twinkle and flash, looking exactly like a heavy, solid piece of a deep green forest, with the afternoon sunlight quietly shimmering through the swaying leaves. It is a pocket of endless, serene spring, a heavy, cool rock that holds the exact shifting light of a quiet, breezy afternoon in the woods, perfectly captured in solid glass. Let your own mind wander freely into that quiet, green, shimmering forest. There are no tasks here, no urgent deadlines to meet, and nothing that requires your active attention. Only the gentle swaying of the branches, the soft, cool air filling your lungs, and the beautiful, heavy stillness of the earth anchoring you safely in place. You can just let go, drifting further down into the comfortable, protective shade. As we rest in that peaceful shade, we can find a beautiful, resonant lesson in a stone that entirely hides its inner brilliance behind a rough, incredibly unassuming exterior. Scattered across the high, arid deserts of Oregon and the ancient volcanic landscapes of Germany are unassuming, spherical, deeply textured rocks known as thunder eggs. From the outside, they look like nothing more than simple, dull, heavy clods of brown volcanic ash and hardened, weathered rhyolite. But their history is a story of a quiet, internal filling. Millions of years ago, rapidly expanding gases trapped in the cooling volcanic ash created hollow, perfectly star-shaped cavities within the rock. Eons later, slow-moving groundwater seeped into these hidden geometric voids, carrying rich, dissolved silica. Drop by drop, layer by microscopic layer, the water completely filled the star-shaped hollow with brilliant, swirling, translucent agate. When a dull, brown thunder egg is finally sliced perfectly in half, the rough exterior gives way to a breathtaking, glowing, perfectly preserved geometric star of blue, white, and pale red chalcedony. It is a stunning, solid reminder that the most profound, complex, and magnificent beauty is often carried deeply within, hidden safely behind a weathered, quiet, and unassuming surface, waiting patiently for the right moment to be gently opened. This internal, geometric sorting of materials takes on a profoundly symbolic, almost protective shape in a specific dark variety of the heavy mineral andalusite. As this crystal slowly grows within metamorphic rock, under immense shifting geological pressure, it encounters a vast amount of dark, carbon-rich graphite in its immediate environment. But the strict mathematical lattice of the andesite cannot incorporate the heavy graphite into its clear structure. So, in an incredible feat of microscopic engineering, the growing crystal physically pushes the dark graphite particles outward as it slowly expands. Because the crystal naturally grows in a specific square-like prismatic shape, the dark impurities are forced precisely into the four corners and the very centre of the stone. When the long tubular crystal is sliced across its width, it reveals a perfect, dark, geometric cross of graphite resting flawlessly within the paler surrounding stone. Known for centuries as the cross stone or chiastolite, it was carried by ancient pilgrims as a natural protective amulet. It is a breathtaking example of the earth finding pure order within chaos, physically organising and pushing the dark impurities of its environment into a perfectly balanced, deeply comforting geometric symmetry. From the warm, earthy tones of the cross stone, we travel north to the sheer, freezing coastal fjords of Norway, where the deep, heavy granite itself seems to hold a shifting, magical light. In the region of Larvik, the earth forged a dense, dark, complex, igneous rock composed mostly of feldspar. As the massive magma chamber slowly cooled over millions of years, the different types of feldspar within the rock began to slowly unmix, separating into alternating, microscopic, perfectly parallel layers. The resulting stone is larvikite. To the casual observer walking along the freezing beach, it appears as a heavy, dark grey or almost black polished stone. But when the angle of the light hits it just right, the light waves penetrate the dark surface and bounce off those microscopic internal boundaries. The dark stone suddenly flashes with sweeping, brilliant, iridescent flares of icy silver and vivid, electric blue. It is a mesmerizing optical effect known as the Schiller effect. Looking at a polished slab of larvikite is exactly like looking up at the dark, freezing winter sky over the Arctic, suddenly illuminated by the shifting, ghostly blue and silver ribbons of the northern lights. The stone permanently holds the quiet magic of the aurora borealis, locked securely within the absolute density of the heavy dark earth. You can simply watch those cool blue flashes of light in the dark, quiet space behind your eyelids. Let them slowly flare and fade, just like the quiet, rhythmic rising and falling of your own chest. There is a deep, profound peace in knowing that even the heaviest, darkest stones hold the absolute capacity for sudden, breathtaking light. Nothing needs to be forced. The light simply reveals itself when the time is right. This sudden, shifting light in the freezing north is beautifully contrasted by a phenomenon born of intense heat and the sweeping tropical winds of the Hawaiian Islands. We often think of volcanic eruptions as creating heavy, immovable mountains of dark basalt rock. But when highly fluid, superheated lava is violently tossed high into the air, the wind becomes the ultimate fleeting sculptor. As the droplets of liquid rock fly through the sky, the strong coastal winds catch them, stretching the molten glass out into impossibly long, incredibly thin, flexible golden threads. They cool almost instantly in the air, falling gently to the earth in massive tangled drifts that look exactly like spun gold or soft, fine, glowing straw. The native Hawaiians beautifully named this delicate glassy wonder Pele's hair, after the revered goddess of volcanoes. The threads are so impossibly light that they drift on the breeze, catching softly in the branches of nearby trees and resting without weight on the sharp, black lava fields below. It is a stunning paradox. The most violent, explosive and scorching force on the planet is gently caught by the wind and instantly transformed into a delicate, fragile, golden thread, resting weightlessly on the sleeping island. From the delicate, wind-blown glass of the volcanic islands, we drift finally to the slow, heavy, grounding evaporation of the ancient world. Over 250 million years ago, during the Permian period, vast, shallow inland seas covered immense portions of the Earth. As the climate slowly changed, the relentless sun beat down, and these great, quiet oceans began to permanently, quietly dry up. As the water vanished into the sky, it left behind vast, staggering deposits of sodium chloride, halite, the mineral we know as salt. Because of the exact rigid bonding of its sodium and chlorine atoms, the salt crystallized into perfect, flawless, sharp-edged cubes. But these ancient seas were not empty. They were filled with microscopic life. Single-celled algae and specific trace, iron-rich minerals were caught in the evaporating brine. As the salt crystals slowly grew, they permanently locked these ancient organic traces inside their perfect cubic lattice. The result is Himalayan pink salt. When you hold a heavy glowing cube of this salt, you are not just holding a mineral. You are holding the literal solid residue of an ocean that vanished 250 million years ago. The soft, warm, glowing pink colour is the permanent solid memory of the microscopic life that once thrived in the ancient water. Reach the deepest point of our journey, travelling past the ancient salt beds, the glowing amber, and the heavy mantle. We arrive at the ultimate, most profound secret our planet holds. It is a fact that anchors everything we have explored tonight. Deepest of all, resting at the very centre of the Earth, nearly 4,000 miles beneath your resting body, lies the solid inner core. For a long time, scientists believed this core was simply a dense, featureless ball of hot, compressed metal. But through the careful, patient study of seismic waves echoing through the planet after distant earthquakes, a breathtaking reality was quietly revealed. The pressure at the centre of the Earth is so unimaginably immense, millions of times greater than the pressure at the surface, that the iron and nickel atoms there cannot melt, even though the temperature burns as hot as the surface of the sun. Instead, they are forced to lock together in a perfect, rigid, geometric lattice. The very heart of our world is not a chaotic liquid. It is a single, colossal crystal. It is a solid, metallic sphere roughly the size of the moon, suspended in an ocean of liquid iron, spinning silently in the absolute dark. And as this massive moon-sized crystal slowly turns, it generates the vast, invisible magnetic field that reaches out into space, wrapping around the entire globe. This invisible shield protects our atmosphere, our oceans, and everything living on the surface from the harsh, sweeping solar winds. You are, in this very moment, resting safely on the outer shell of a giant spinning crystal. It is the silent, beating heart of the world. It requires no light, it makes no sound, and it asks for no recognition. Yet its perfect crystalline geometry provides the invisible protection that allows all life, all quiet forests, and all dreaming minds to exist in absolute peace. It is the ultimate foundation, the heaviest, deepest anchor imaginable, holding you perfectly safe in the vastness of space. We have travelled so far tonight, slowly descending from the freezing upper atmosphere where the sun dogs form in the drifting ice, down through the damp, dark caves lined with velvet minerals, all the way to the solid, crystalline heart of the world itself. But now, the journey is complete. The long descent is over. You do not need to carry any of these facts, these names, or these ancient stories with you into the night. You can simply let them all go. If a specific colour, a smooth geometric shape, or a soft glowing light remains in your mind, let it be just a gentle, passing dream. You do not need to try to remember the exact angles of the stones. You do not need to hold on to the millions of years it took for them to find their perfect form. The Earth has already done all the heavy, patient work. The crystals are safely resting in the dark, held securely in the bedrock, and now it is your turn to do the exact same thing. Feel the solid, comforting weight of the Earth beneath you. It is holding you up without any effort on your part. Your body can simply surrender to gravity. Notice how the muscles in your face have completely softened. The tight tension in your shoulders has melted away, leaving only a comfortable, sinking heaviness that pulls you deeper into the mattress. Your hands and your feet are entirely relaxed, heavy and still. Your breathing is incredibly slow. It is steady, predictable, and calm. It is the only rhythm that matters now. With every single exhalation, you are drifting further and further away from the waking world. The bright, sharp lights of the day have faded into a soft, comforting shadow. The edges of your thoughts are blurring, smoothing out, becoming as perfectly calm and unmoving as a clear underground pool that hasn't been touched by the wind in thousands of years. There is absolutely nothing left to learn tonight. There is nowhere left to travel. There is no problem to solve and no destination to reach. There is only this quiet room, this soft surface, and the endless, peaceful dark waiting to embrace you. Let the silence settle over you like a heavy, warm blanket. Let the profound stillness fill the empty spaces between your slow, easy breaths. You are perfectly safe. You're completely untroubled. The mind can finally, entirely rest. And now, 101 wonders are resting with you. Sleep now. Good night.